low-value men.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site. You can believe that. You can believe that. You can believe that.
Contracted COVID, but says with a mixture of medicines, including the controversial horse dewormer that has poisoned hundreds of people nationwide, he's now recovered.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
From the headlines to the whispers dark, low value mail, we'll get them all. Low value mail at 9 o'clock. We're truth and fiction, take a walk.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon? You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Our stories are.
Welcome back to all the scroats out there. It is episode number 159 of Low Value Mail on this Monday, September 8th, 2025, the year of our Lord. My hair's looking all messed up. Welcome back, everybody. It's glad to be back. I hope you guys all had a good Labor Day weekend. Did you? I don't know, but I hope you did. Joining me today in the second hour of the show, we have, I'm sure some of you know him. I'm sure he's a controversial figure on Twitter. Michael Tracey, independent journalist. You can read his work over on mtracy.net. He'll be joining in the second hour of the show to discuss probably a lot of Epstein stuff, to be honest. I think that's what we're going to talk about. I promised myself I would never talk about Epstein ever again. If you guys remember my miniature meltdown that I had, where I said, what is the point of all of this? But you know what? He kind of has something different to say about it. You might not like it. You might not like it, but at least it's something new and novel. And I'm looking forward to that. So make sure to stay tuned. And also before I start, please make sure, click that like button and subscribe to the channel. I would really like to have 10,000 subscribers on this channel. Otherwise, I'm going to do something bad to myself. Not going to say what it is. Don't want to get in trouble on YouTube. But I might do it. All right. Let's get down to it. So I'm sure you guys have all seen the tragic murder of Irina Zarutska. This has really been making the rounds. It's been my whole timeline basically on Twitter. And it's funny because, you know, everybody's like, Twitter's not real life. That is maybe one of the furthest from the true things that exists. Because this was literally a local news story that then popped off on Twitter, forced the hands of the mainstream media to at least acknowledge that this happened. And now the president of the fucking United States is talking about it. And you want to tell me that Twitter's not real life? Twitter's about as real as it gets. I don't think it gets more real than that. Tell me how that's not real life. Got the goddamn president talking about it. So, for those of you who don't know, because, again, this hasn't really been covered in the mainstream media too much. It's only really started in the last probably day or so. On August 22nd, a man named DeCarlos Brown Jr. was sitting behind this woman on a rail car in Charlotte, North Carolina. The man stands up and stabs her in the neck, killing her. Which was all caught on video, completely unprovoked. She was coming home from her, and she's a Ukrainian refugee, 23 years old, coming home from a shift working at a pizza shop, I believe, which is where she works now, or did, sorry. The guy just, nothing happened. She didn't even look at him funny. And this video I didn't watch the video. I'm not into really watching people the last moments of their lives. I'm not big on that. Although that's the kind of platform Twitter is now, where he goes, hey, you want to watch some snuff films? We got it for you. You want to talk about cryptocurrency? You want to talk about Black Twitter? You want to talk about sports? We got it all. We got it all. But anyways, in the last 2 or 3 days, the video, it just kind of came out of nowhere, began disseminating all across X. Zero mainstream news sources picked up the story. None. And make no mistake, if not for X, and specifically Elon Musk, because he was the one who kind of, I think, catapulted this into a higher stratosphere, if you will, we would not know about this story. We would have no idea about this story. It would have just been a local story in Charlotte and would have just been one of the 20,000 plus murders occurring in the U.S. on an annual basis. That's a lot of murders, by the way. That's crazy. 20,000 people get murdered every year. More than that. I think the most recent statistic is for 2023. They don't have 2024 yet. I don't know what they're waiting on. It's almost 2026. But I think it was like 22 and change in 2023. That's a lot of murders. I don't know if it's per capita a lot. I don't know, but seems like a lot. Now, there's a lot of things about this that are true. This has angered a lot of people, specifically white people. White people like me are up in arms about this stuff. Huh? That's right. White people like us, huh? Just constantly getting victimized. Now, look, we all know this. This is said over and over again. If the man was white and the woman was black, this would be the biggest story in the country. We might have another George Floyd on our hands. Potentially. Georgina Floyd. George's cousin. Right? And we all know this. It's almost said, like, you just kind of see, you go, we all know this. We all know this to be true. But we just say it. And look, we all remember Daniel Penny. Because here's the thing, right? And we all know this. Left-wing media outlets, they take every opportunity to not cover stories they think would villainize black folks. And they take every opportunity to villainize white people like us, right? We all know this. We all know this. It's just one of those things. What's the explanation for it? I don't know. I think there's a lot of explanations for it. I think part of me thinks that there's this element of they feel bad because they probably in the past maybe overdid this stuff. They also don't like really throwing white people a bone. They generally think white people are bad. I think that the people who work in these journalism departments or whatever, they all came from higher education and whatnot, where they kind of were fed a lot of this left-wing gobbledygook, to quote Norm Macdonald, right? So they go, anything that makes anybody but white people look bad, we don't want to do that. That reinforces negative stereotypes. So we don't do that, right? But again, we all remember Daniel Penny, a white guy who got his life absolutely turned upside down for restraining a mentally ill, deranged black man on a New York City subway. And the man, I believe his name was Jordan Neely, eventually died, right? And it was a whole thing. He had this crazy, ridiculous trial. Thankfully, he was exonerated. But oftentimes, as they say, the process is the punishment, right? He didn't go to jail, but he had to go through all of that, which was bad enough, right? And if you happen to be a white guy on that train in Charlotte, surely you would think twice about intervening if you remember what they did to Daniel Penny. I mean, I would. If I saw some shit going down, certainly it would cross my mind where you're like, yeah, if I intervene here, somehow I'm the one that's going to get in trouble. That doesn't seem right. And this is, this murder has definitely struck a nerve on right-wing Twitter more than anywhere else. By far, even to the point where places like Axios and stuff are covering this, being like, yeah, we're covering this because MAGA Twitter's all angry about this. That's why we're even covering it. It's just another murder. And there is a case to be made. Maybe it is just another, maybe this is just another deranged lunatic who just killed a random person. It happens. Obviously, there's a racial component here. And we all know that if the roles were reversed, this would automatically be a racially motivated crime, which I don't think it was, by the way. I don't think he attacked her because she was white or Ukrainian. Maybe he was a big pro-Russia guy. Is there any chance of that happening? Maybe that'll be what they come out with. They go, he was a big Putin guy. I mean, do you guys remember this was late last year? New York City white homeless woman gets lit on fire on a New York City train by a Guatemalan man illegally in the country. I'm sure we all remember that. Now, that was horrible, but people didn't seem to care quite as much about that one. And I definitely do not remember anyone saying he targeted her because she was white. Maybe I missed that discourse, but I don't remember it. Now, obviously, at the time, we were talking about getting rid of the illegals. That was certainly a feather in the cap for those people. I mean, if you were against illegal immigration, you could just point to them and be like, look, they're fucking lighting white women on fire. But I don't really remember hearing her referred to as a white woman at all. She was a homeless woman. There's like a hierarchy of this stuff. You're homeless first and then white. But again, I don't remember the racial component existing at all with that. Now, maybe it's because she was some old homeless hag versus an attractive young woman. It's possible. I don't know. I mean, there is some element. What was that, Gabby Petito? There is some element where when you see some young hot chick get murdered, you go, that's a shame. That's a real shame. Whereas it's like some gross chick, you go, it's unfortunate. I'm not a monster. But you go, it's less of a shame. You go, it's really unfortunate, but it's really a shame when the hot ones get killed. I don't know what the reaction is. Maybe just, that's just a natural reaction. You just go, you hate to lose a good member of the gene pool. You know what I mean? Like maybe is there some biological element to that where you go, that would have been a good contributor to the gene pool. We lost that one. And when they're not good ones, you go, probably going to get weeded out at some point along the way anyhow, right? But look, America has 350 million people. So this kind of thing is going to happen. You can't ever just eliminate this stuff from happening. It's impossible. Obviously, cities and states could be tougher on crime, as the murderer of this Ukrainian woman had been arrested 14 different times and was diagnosed as a schizophrenic, which it seems like we've heard this story a million times, right? You go, yeah, this guy's super long rap sheet, all these mental health problems. It says here, Brown was diagnosed with schizophrenia and has a documented pattern of delusional behavior. In January, he was arrested after allegedly repeatedly calling 911 to claim that a man-made material had been implanted in his body and was dictating his ability to eat, walk, and speak. I mean, we've all been there once or twice. I think you took the vax and you go, I can't even eat anymore. Hello, 911? Obviously, this guy was mental. And I don't know, like, can you even deter this type of behavior with harsh penalties? Like if the guy is in fact schizophrenic, because that's obviously where you go to is you go, okay, we just need super draconian. We need fucking China, like Singapore style laws, right? We need people getting caned and hanged in the town square. Would that even deter this person? Are they living in the same reality that you are? Would they see that and be like, oh, I shouldn't do this stuff because that could have been me if I keep up with this shit? I don't know. Like Asia, they have these super strict penalties that would probably have this guy locked away for a long time. But also, everything is a trade-off. And if you want to go that route where you go, we just need these super strict laws, you go, there's going to be some unfavorable outcomes for some people. Ones that you can't predict that you probably don't like. Like, look at that girl in Dubai. I don't know if you saw this. She just got 25 years in Dubai prison for being caught with 50 grams of coke. Now, that's a lot of coke. That's a couple of parties, right? That's a couple of fun times with friends. But, and I will say this, they probably don't have shit like this happening over in Dubai. But then do you want to live in a country with laws that harsh? You go, when it comes to personal safety and stuff, you go, yeah, that doesn't sound bad. But then you have to, kind of look at it in the whole totality. You go, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if I've been to countries that have these super harsh drug laws in general. I go, I don't know if these are places I would want to live. But then I also don't want to live in a place where you can just get knifed on the goddamn subway. I don't know. I will say though, I don't know if people remember the story from back in Canada, but the story reminds me a lot of that Asian guy in Winnipeg who cut off the head of a fellow passenger on a Greyhound bus because God told him to do it. You guys remember that? It was like 10 years ago. Maybe 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. Dude basically was on an overnight Greyhound bus, and he just decides he's going to sit beside some guy. God told him to cut the guy's head off. Cuts the guy's head off on a Greyhound bus. He's found not criminally responsible. Now, I don't know how much of that is Canada versus if that would be the case in any country. Eventually, he got released back into society after being deemed to be mentally fit, and now he takes his meds. And he's been out for 8 years. He didn't really go to jail for very long. I think he maybe got like 3 years for fucking sawing a guy's head off on a Greyhound bus. But as far as I know, he hasn't committed any new crimes. Like maybe there is something to be said where you go, yeah, as long as you do the stuff, it works. But again, you can't force people to take their meds, obviously. We could open up a lot more mental institutions, which I am in favor of that. I think that is worth another try. Which is what this country used to do. It's what most countries used to do. And then for whatever reason, they're like, we don't want to institutionalize people for life. I don't know if it was a cost thing where they go, this shit's so expensive. They're like, what? We just have to take care of this guy for the rest of his life because he's fucking a little cuckoo? I mean, really, we should bring back lobotomies. I am such a proponent of bringing back lobotomies, as many of you know. We should just bring back lobotomies. In 1955, I didn't know this. In 1955, for every 100,000 U.S. citizens, there were 340 psychiatric hospital beds. In 2005, that number had diminished to 17 per 100,000 from 340,000. And it seems like things have become more dangerous. It does seem like that. I mean, you talk anecdotally, like I have friends who are cops, and they're like, yeah, we're just babysitters for mentally ill people most of the time. Most of the time, that's what they do. And now they go, yeah, we send them to jail instead. And you go, is that better? Are we better off not having all these mental institutions? Certainly the country can afford it. Maybe we need to reopen the mental institutions. I don't know if like the whole Batman universe has kind of soured people on the idea of mental institutions because that's where all the villains kind of start from. You wind up with a bunch of Jokers and Penguins. I don't know. But obviously, I'm sure they were, the people who... I don't know. I don't know what the tone was like at the time where they're like, yeah, we need to get rid of all these institutions because they have their own problems. I don't know. Was it just a cost thing? I don't know. And again, you can call in. You can let me know what you think. Trump has now chimed in as well. Trump's loving this. Trump is like, oh, money. This is great for the old Trump Meister, Mr. Law and Order. He says this. He says, I've seen the horrific video of a beautiful young Ukrainian refugee who came to America to escape the vicious war in Ukraine and was innocently riding the metro in Charlotte, North Carolina, where she was brutally ambushed by a mentally deranged lunatic. The perpetrator was a well-known career criminal who had been previously arrested and released on cashless bail in January, total of 14 times. Definitely the cashless bail stuff is insane. They do that in New York too. You're like, it just incentivizes people to constantly commit crimes. I don't know how they don't see that. Or they don't care. Or they're just so fucking just bleeding heart liberal where they go, I just can't. It just hurts me to incarcerate anybody. He says the blood of this innocent woman can literally be seen dripping from the killer's knife, and now her blood is on the hands of the Democrats who refuse to put bad people in jail, including former disgraced governor and wannabe Senator Roy Cooper. And then he tells them to vote for somebody else. Additionally, he says, where is the outrage from mainstream media on this horrible tragedy? Good point. But again, they certainly can't cover every murder. There can't be, they can't cover 20,000 murders a year. You got to rank them somehow. Obviously, they have their system. I mean, Trump is obviously going hard on this law and order stuff, sending in the National Guard into cities, Chicago appearing to be next. And again, on paper, what is not to like about that? If you're not a criminal, you're like, yeah, this is great. I keep seeing like Don Lemon interview people on the streets, and they're like, what do you think about this? And they're like, yeah, let's do this. But again, I don't know what they're going to be, but you can definitely see some kind of unintended consequences of having cities militarized that we probably can't predict now, but down the line you go, yeah, we shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have done that. But that, I guess my point is here, at the end of the day, because I know you guys are all popping off for a big race war. That's what you guys want. The government's not going to save you. The only person who can save you is yourself. You just got to be aware of your surroundings at all time. I definitely, when I take the train, I'm not looking around for police. I'm looking around for just like, who's the craziest guy on here? What are my threats? And that's that. They're not going to save you. I mean, you look at Japan, they have super strict laws. They still have knife attacks because there's always going to be crazy people. All right, one more thing, and then we're going to open the phone lines. NBC just put out a poll, which was interesting. I'm just going to cover this very quickly. NBC News Decision Desk poll asked Gen Z adults, that's 18 to 29 years old, what they consider important to a successful life. The results were pretty interesting. Men who voted for Trump said the most important thing to their personal definition of success was having children, followed by financial independence, and then fulfilling job and career. Last on the list was having emotional stability. That's a real fucking man right there. You go, emotional what now? Shut the hell up. Gen Z women who voted for Kamala Harris ranked fulfilling job / career first, having money to do things you want second, and having emotional stability third, with having children being dead last. That's not good. I mean, for those of you who are watching this show, who are like, we're being replaced and don't like immigration, this is not good for that. If you are anti-immigration, man, you do not like to hear this. Gen Z women who voted for Trump were similar to Harris, with financial independence first, fulfilling job, career second, and owning a home third. Sixth for them was having children out of 12. And in last place, 12th, the ability to retire early. Gen Z men who voted for Harris ranked fulfilling job, career first, having money to do things you want second, and third was using talents and resources to help others. Oh, that's awful nice of them. Using their talents to help others. Fucking losers. Having children for these guys was 10th, just above the ability to retire early, and being grounded spiritually, being dead last, which I guess checks out. Since when do men want to have kids more than women? What the hell is going on? Did I miss something? Did I completely miss something? I mean, this is so bad for the future. This is 18 to 29-year-olds. If this is actually representative of 18 to 29-year-olds, just like the liberal women do not want to have kids at all. None. The conservative women barely want to have kids. They're like ambivalent about it. They're like, I don't know. I guess if all they want to do is just fucking work and just have money to buy shit from Amazon. Is that correct? This is a fucking disaster. This is so much worse than anybody realizes. I don't think people really realize this, but this is not good at all. And if you're really like these anti-immigration hardliners, you are not going to like what's coming from this. Because if you think that immigration's bad now, wait till these people fucking get a little older and you're like, oh, you just really went and had no kids, huh? All right. Not great. All right. We're going to open the phone lines. And we'll be joined by Michael Tracey, top of the hour. Excited for this one. We got a couple of super chats. And of course, if we hit the super chat goal, we'll do an extra 30 minutes of open lines. Make sure to like the stream, all that stuff. How was your APAC Mossad check-in last week? What's your next assignment? I didn't have an APAC Mossad check-in. It was Labor Day. And I was enjoying my Labor Day. Vince says, shout out and rip Smucker's dog. She was a real good Nick Nug. That sucks. That I hate to hear. Hate to hear that. All right. We're going to take some phone calls. Before I do, exciting news. I have a sponsor for this episode. A real sponsor. And I'm going to read a sponsored ad read for you. And this is actually cool because sometimes people do be like, can I sponsor your thing? And then they tell me what it is. And I go, I don't think so. But this is cool. And also, if you are a small business owner and you would like to sponsor the show, hit me up. We have as long as it's not something like gay. But anyways, this sponsor this week, I want to tell you guys about. Football season is back. Baseball's heating up. NBA, NHL are right around the corner. Don't worry, this ad is not for a sports book. I know that's what you were thinking. I know some of you bet on sports. I'm sure most of you lose, as most people do. This is much better than that, though. Data Hermit is a software tool that allows you to arbitrage sports betting for risk-free gains. Now, I know this sounds crazy, as nothing is risk-free, but there are actually huge firms on Wall Street and do exactly this with the stock market, foreign exchange, things like that. You know, they say there's no such thing as a free lunch, and obviously you have to do the work. So in that sense, there is no such thing as a free lunch. But basically what their software does, if you've ever bet on sports, what their software does is it analyzes every sports book, which there are hundreds and hundreds of sports books everywhere, and they find minor discrepancies. Essentially, normally when you bet on sports, you just pick one team and you just pray it's a winner. And boy, do you pray. I don't know if you guys saw that fucking Bills-Ravens game last night. Oof, that was a good one, though. With Data Hermit, you actually bet on both teams to win, but on different sites, locking in a small but guaranteed spread. Now, normally, if you were to, on the same site, if you were to say, I'm just going to bet on the Ravens and Buffalo, God damn it. Why is this not muted? Hold on. Why are these not muted? They're supposed to be muted. Sorry. This is my bad. This is not great for a first ad read. Aha! Okay, where was I? Yes. Now, normally, when you bet on sports, you pick one team, praying it's a winner. With Data Hermit, you actually bet on both teams to win, but on different sites, locking in a small but guaranteed spread. Right now, there's a limited time, 7-day free offer to test it yourself. Just go to data-hermit.com and book a demo to see for yourself. Users are winning real money, and Data Hermit also helps you take advantage of the free sign-up bonuses sportsbooks offer. These can be $1,500 or more. So go to www.data-hermit.com, book a demo, see for yourself. And again, this is not sports betting. Even though it seems like it's sports betting, it's not, because you're actually betting on both teams to win. Or lose, but to win, really. So go check that out. All right, everybody like and subscribe to the channel. If you're an audio listener, leave a review. And if you want to support the show, you can do so patreon.com/lowvaluemail, MAIL. And new bathhouse tomorrow night. Yep, check that out. All right, we got a call. Hey, are you there?
Hello?
Hey, what's up? You're on Low Value Man. Who am I speaking with?
Chandler James.
Chandler, what's up, man?
Howdy. I wanted to talk about the idea of, or I guess the conspiracy of, George Soros and his buddies letting go of criminals in predominantly Democrat areas to have the property tax, or I guess the properties lowered in the area, so that way they can buy it all up at, pennies on the dollar and then turn the sanity back on.
That is an interesting angle that I've never actually heard in terms of his motivations behind it. Because it is common knowledge that he basically, speaking of arbitrage, because that's actually what they refer to it as, he essentially figured out, he's like, you can invest or, back like a congressperson and, spend fucking $20 million and have a congressperson in your pocket. But you're like, there's a way more bang for your buck if you just get like district attorneys and like lower level people where you give them, 50 grand or something to get them elected. So that is known. That's what Soros did, is he just targeted all these like lower level, like DAs, stuff like that. And, they are kind of doing his bidding. I've never heard of the angle to lower property prices. And I know that he's done like that in New York, and property prices definitely have not come down here. So.
Yeah, because I heard something in California. The story was like it was a few years old, so I can't remember the exact details, but it was like two very predominant hotels that were very like high-end, super expensive hotels. The area got really, really shitty, and so they were kind of waiting and hoping that like post-COVID that it would kick off again, but it just kind of got shittier and shittier and shittier, and eventually they just gave up and they're like, fine, fuck it, we just abandoned it. And someone was talking, and that's where I first heard about this idea that, yeah, they just abandoned it, completely just gave up on the properties. And then someone came in and claimed the properties. It'd be like, well, that's a pretty good way to use a lot of land. And just,
I mean, that would be kind of tricky to do. I mean, for one, he would probably then need to appoint like DAs who are actually tough on crime to essentially reverse what he did to bring those areas back to where people would want to live in them and make the property more valuable, I would think. Like he'd have to go then do the opposite, which from what I understand, he has not really done. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like an interesting theory. I think he's really just a fucking piece of shit.
Well, like look at it, I can't remember. Gavin Newsom with the Xi Jinping when he came through California and the homelessness.
Yeah.
And like literally one day, that's like, oh, they're gone.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And like that was always a solution. They're like, yeah, it's always been a solution.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like essentially, when you live somewhere and you're like, this place is a dump. Not really this place is a dump, but like, you ever like live with like a roommate and they're messy and then some girl's coming over and then he like kind of just goes and cleans the place up real spick and span because he's trying to impress her. That seemed like more of that with the Xi Jinping thing where he's kind of like, oh, I want to impress this guy, tidy up and everything when like, I don't really think it was, but yeah, the property value thing doesn't totally make sense to me just because I don't know. Like one, I don't know if Soros is like, he obviously I'm sure owns a shit ton of property just by virtue of being so wealthy. But that's not, I don't think that's like really his business. I don't know like I've heard different things about his motivations for this DA stuff. I really just think he has a worldview, like a super liberal worldview. And he just figured out like the best bang for the buck to just kind of make that a reality. If that makes sense. Yeah. That's what I think anyways, but it's hard to say. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, that was it. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Thanks, man. And the phone lines are open, everybody. 1-888-949-2969. We have a few spots for calls, so I'm sure some of you have some ideas about this Ukrainian woman getting murdered or the fact that nobody's having kids. That nobody's having kids thing is really not good. I'm curious. What's the generation after Gen Z? I don't know, but they better. I mean, it doesn't even matter. Here's the thing. Even if the next generation is like, yo, we're fucking fundamentalist Muslims, the way we have kids, like we're going full Amish, it doesn't matter. Just the losing a single generation like that, is a huge amount of damage. Dude, this country, every country is just going to be so brown. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that's just what it's going to be. It might be bad. It might be good, but that's what it's going to be. Hate to break it to you. All right, let's take a call here. We're going all the way up to Canada. Exciting stuff. The country of Canada where they normally know how to unmute themselves fairly quickly, but for some reason, not today. Not today, they don't. All right, guys. Well, we're going to wait for him to call in. 1-888. And we got Gerard producing the show. Shout out to Gerard on the ones and twos. Okay, let's try a different caller here. Hello.
Hey, Danny. How you doing?
Hey, what's up? Who am I speaking with?
This is Nick. First time caller.
What's up, Nick? How are things?
They're going okay. For your second question, first of all, it's the first story, crazy.
Yeah.
And it definitely caused a reaction I could see online.
Oh man, it's going crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
On the second point, and I'm kind of curious about your take, and if you noticed this, but like kind of circles I'm looking at and like the information I'm getting online, is that the men, like younger men, have kind of moved in a different direction than women. So like, for example, they become a lot more religious than women. They go more likely to go more church. And so maybe that's the reason why there's a change in maybe like the values.
Yeah, it smacks in the face of just biology, where you're like, women have like an inherent biological element where that's like they want to physically have children, and now they just now they literally just want to like have money to do the things they want to do. And emotional stability, and they have no interest in having children. Like, I was surprised that the Trump voting women, the Gen Z Trump voting women, are like barely interested in having kids. Like, that was still sixth for them.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'll say this from like my experience. I'm like 29 right now, right? So I'm 29. My experience when I go into like dating out here, not a lot of girls care about kids. It's not a common thing. And if they do, they're like maybe one or two.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the 1 or 2 thing, like max, which again is still below the replacement rate, which is I believe 2.1. But there is like they do. I don't know. Like maybe it's fucking birth control, but like women were on birth control in the 90s, so I don't even know if you can say it's birth control. It's like you could get abortions in the 90s. I really don't know what it is. Like, I don't know what you can really nail down as the reason why, like, these 18 to 29-year-olds just do not want to have kids. The women, like, what scenario is there where guys want kids more than women? Like, it used to be the opposite, where you're like, yeah, this chick trapped me with a fucking kid. Now it's like the opposite, where like guys are wanting to have kids and women are like, yeah, I don't really... That's really going to like cut into my leisure time. I don't know. I don't know if it's maybe just like, I'm sure you could correlate it with the lack of interest in religion. I'm sure there's a real correlation in the fact that the less religious a society gets, the more likely it starts becoming like this.
But the thing about it is that the men are getting more religious. That's the interesting. They're actually getting more religious, the men.
Yeah, the men are getting more religious, maybe because there's an inherent thing in men's brains where they're like, we have to save civilization. Women don't think like that. They just go, I want more stuff off of Amazon. I don't know. I really don't know. This was like fairly surprising to me that, because I thought for sure like, oh yeah, Gen Z Trump supporting women, they're going to be like the men, and number one is going to be having kids, and they're just like sixth. Like, dude, having children is just above having no debt. Like, it's crazy.
And especially in today's society.
Yeah.
Like, having no debt is virtually impossible. What are you talking about?
That too. But you're just like, that's crazy. But you're like, I mean, I'm telling you, like, people are not thinking of long-term how bad this is going to be. Like on the demographics of like everything. Like, this is going to be so fucking bad, and nobody realizes it. Because again, you're like, there's a lot of people who watch the show and they do not like the whole like people coming, immigrants, but all that stuff coming into the country. To essentially what they're doing is they're, making up for the fact that the like locals do not want to have kids. Like the people, Americans do not want to have kids, but you're like, those people have tons of kids. Like those people, if you pull them, like these third world people who come to America, they're like, both of them, men and the women, are like, yeah, number one, have kids and have a lot of them.
I think, I'll be honest with you, because I have kind of a little bit of experience with this, just a little bit. It depends on the level of education, I think. So the higher educated they are, especially on the female side, they may have one. They may want to have like one or maybe two kids, but not more than that.
Yeah, and again, like women have college degrees more than they ever have. I mean, they get college degrees more than men now, so it makes sense that they're they're choosing like choosing stuff like fulfilling job and career because they're like, yeah, I have my master's degree, so I guess that's the thing you do. Is it's important you have a fulfilling job and a career and having money because that's like what's led up to this point of doing all this schooling and getting a degree. And again, that's how they feel and that's what they're doing. Like you're not going to change it aside from like banning women from colleges, which is not the worst idea. If we if you banned women from higher education, that would probably solve the birth rate problem pretty quickly with very few negative effects on society. But they're not going to do that. So, but again, this isn't a conversation people are really having right now. Like people are like having the conversation, oh, I don't want immigrants. You go, okay, that's one conversation, but then you see this and you're like, okay, well, they're coming.
I mean, but even if you don't have immigrants, societies like Korea, who tends to have less immigrants, or Japan, there's still pretty low birth rates. I mean, like it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, and Japan is literally like here's the problem is because this is like a slow motion kind of car crash thing where you don't like see it on a day-to-day or year-to-year basis. But like Japan's population, they're saying the year 2100 is going to be substantially lower than what it is today. Even Japan right now is actually making a push to bring in immigrants because Japan is realizing you're like,
they are.
Yeah, because they're like, we're super fucked if we don't bring in immigrants. Like if you want to participate in this global like economic scheme or whatever you want to call it, like the system, you need more consumption. Like you need more people. And like Japan is going to be like, they're just going to have these ghost towns. And I don't know. I keep trying to find an argument for why that would necessarily be bad. But like, I mean, you can kind of, people are like, oh, well, all houses are going to cost half the price. And you go, okay, well, that doesn't seem so bad. But probably you're like, yeah, you have way less of a tax base, like can't maintain stuff. Like you could see how when you set a system up to require more and more people, that like if that like factor comes out of it, like if that element is removed, you're like, yeah, it's probably, I mean, you guys set up a system based on this. So it's probably going to be pretty bad. That's just my thoughts on that. But
there was a great video about South Korea and how even if they try to shift, like the moment they try to shift in the number of kids, it'd still be too late. And
it's way too late.
That does that, they'll be squeezed on both ends because of like that. Because I think the tax system, I think that's the biggest one, the tax burden, to take care of those older people, which I mean, like why Canada is probably killing its old people.
Yeah.
It's precisely because of that. It's just too heavy and they cannot carry it. So they're like, well, you have kind of a couple of options. You can kill the old people voluntarily.
Yeah. Like there's good. Yeah. Like I think, I don't know if it's one of those countries, but like it's something like they're going to either they have it now or it's soon to be, they're going to have more old people than young people. And you're like, that's not a good way to organize a society. Like literally the people who are most costly are the majority. You're like, I don't know if that's good. But yeah, go ahead. One last thing.
One last thing, boss. I know this is something that you love. Have you watched the Elephant Graveyard? The video they have about how comedy was destroyed by an anti-reality doomsday cult?
No,
I have not.
I have not seen this. Elephant Graveyard is a YouTube channel?
Yeah, the Elephant Graveyard. The YouTube channel is called that.
And
they have this whole thing on how
comedy was destroyed
by an anti-reality doomsday cult. Basically, they take a lot of shots at Joe Rogan and whatnot, and kind of his type.
I mean,
I know you don't necessarily run that circle, but
yeah, well, they've been talking about. There's been this hyperbolic thing about like, the destruction of comedy for at least the last 5 years, and you're like, you don't see it. I mean, certainly the 80s there was like this comedy boom, but you're like, I know guys who, go on the road and like I know so many guys who are legitimate millionaires from comedy, like many. I'm like it's hard to say that it's just like, yeah, comedy's dead. it's it's certainly changed, but I mean, Shane Gillis played like Notre Dame Stadium last night or 2 nights ago for like 100,000 people. Like, to be like comedy is over. It's just kind of reorganized a bit. I mean, definitely comedy, like TV. Like, I see them trying to come back with this new like Office kind of spin-off show, and you're like, this is...
Oh yeah, you see that one?
I didn't see it, and I'm not going to see it because I'm sure it's fucking
The
dog
trailer.
shit.
But you see the trailer? You saw the trailer?
I saw the trailer. I'm just like, this is not going to be good. You can't just like, you have to come up with something new. You can't just be like, oh, let's just take this Office thing for a spin for the 9,000th time. Like, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But no, I think people saying like comedy's dead. Comedy's not dead. It always finds a way in some capacity. And I mean, people still go to comedy shows. Like in New York, I'm sure there's been points where it's been more popular, but it's still pretty popular.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I wanted to see if you saw it, and if you have a chance, take a look at it.
I'll go check it. Yeah, I'll go check it out.
Groove.
Elephant Graveyard is the channel, right?
Yeah, the Elephant Graveyard.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out later, man.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to Canada. Oh, here we go. Look at that. Unmutes himself right away. Hello.
Yeah, there was something wrong earlier. I don't know.
That's all good.
How's it going, Danny?
Let's blame the Zoom. How's it going? How are
Yeah.
things?
It's going good. I'm surprised nobody's talking about the girl. I have like 6 things I want to say on this subject.
Let's hear it.
Like
Let's hear them
surprised
all.
people are talking about the other subject.
Yeah.
First thing I want to say is it's very funny to me how like Slavic people are viewed as white by white nationalists, depending on how attractive they find the person.
Yeah.
I did find that pretty funny. Suddenly she's white and not Slavic.
I thought the Slavs are not white? I thought Slavs were like super white, or is that just
Eastern
like,
European, right? It's technically a different race. Like white is supposed to be like in
Nordic?
their logic, like Western European,
Right.
Western European, right?
Right.
Slavic's different race.
Yeah. Right.
The second thing I wanted to say is so you've seen the pictures of her. So I think because she had kind of a lazy eye,
Yeah.
she's viewed as kind of like more attainable in a way, and I think she's more like desired in a way, which is kind of weird. But
Did
it
she have a
definitely
lazy
triggered
eye?
something in me.
I didn't see a photo.
A little
of her.
bit. You see the picture? She's kind of got like there's something wrong with her other eye.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
It's
see
not fully symmetrical.
Oh, okay.
Like people were laughing at the Barbie girl and the British girl in Dubai getting 25 years. Nothing wrong with her. Perfect. Everybody, no sympathy for her.
Yeah.
So I think if there was something wrong with the British Dubai girl, she'd get a little more sympathy.
Yeah, I'm looking at a photo of her right now. Maybe like 2%.
There's something wrong with the eye, just a little bit. And I think that's something like more defendable. Like people are more, that's more attainable. That's more desirable in a way than if she was just fully perfect symmetry.
Plus he got
People,
her.
I don't
Plus
think,
he
would
got
care
her
much.
on like a real off day for her looks. Like she was coming back from like fucking. She looks she looks like a boy in the photo. She's like she's got like
a little
pizza,
bit. I think
pizza
she was
parlor hat
downplaying
on.
like even her looks.
Well, people were saying that, but I don't think so. I think literally what it was is she's like, she's working at a fucking pizza place, and she's just coming back from work, and that's just her uniform at her pizza place.
She also was wearing glasses, and she's not wearing glasses in any of her kind of photos.
Yeah, I do see the slight lazy eye. I do see that. But
I think that's a factor with why people are so sympathetic to how she looks. I think that is there.
I mean, the main
third
story
thing is,
here
like,
is just
she
a
has
race
go
one.
ahead.
But I said the main story here that everybody's fuming over is just that it was a black guy who did it to a white woman, I think. And that people are mad.
But I think if she
like,
was the perfect looking, I think it'd be more, she got what she was looking, I think there'd be less sympathy for her.
Interesting.
Like, there you go.
I guess there was the element where she's the Ukrainian refugee, so she like left a war zone. I guess there was that element.
Well, Lviv. I think she was safer where she was, but the third thing,
clearly
she had
now.
a BLM poster. The BLM poster that kind of just came out recently, that she had the Black Lives Matter poster in her apartment.
That's tough.
So that's there. I don't think it's really fair that a lot of people are saying, she got like what's coming to her. Like,
no.
You don't want to be with a turbo-based right-wing woman. Those women are crazy. That's a red flag. You want to be like, your partner should be like a left-leaning kind of woman. Like they're more caring.
I would like to dispute that. In an ideal world, your female partner has absolutely zero political opinions whatsoever.
Okay, I stand corrected, but you know what I'm getting at.
I don't want you to be right wing. I don't want you to be left wing. I don't want you to be anything.
Pretty normal. Yeah. Pretty normal.
Yeah.
The one thing that really clicked with me, Patrice O'Neill, R.I.P. He had a bit about this where he said like if a white person would stand in front of him on the subway, like in a vulnerable position, he said it would trigger something in him. Like if they were like in front of him, like he could push him on the tracks and kill him. He said he took that like personally as disrespect. because you're not showing respect that he could just kill you by standing in front of him like that.
Interesting.
And like by putting yourself in a vulnerable position. And I think it's the
I mean,
same thing
she was
that
just
happens.
sitting
It's like
there.
you're at a zoo. Yeah, in front of him, leaving herself completely vulnerable. Like if you're in a zoo and there's like a glass enclosure, and you put your back to a lion, they're going to charge at you, even if you have a good relationship with them. That's a predator instinct, right? It's biological.
I mean,
and
I
she
will
did the
say,
same thing, where she's basically put her back to him. She's, shown that she's kind of not showing fear and not showing respect in that way. So it's just, what do predators do? Even if they have a good relationship with the trainer, they attack them.
Yeah.
And I wanted to also say, like, or if any guys listening ever find themselves in this situation where they want to intervene or where they want to win, please do not get involved, because it never goes well for you if you get involved. Typically what happened, like, that guy who was in New York, he pulled out a gun to stop a rape.
Yeah.
And he fired off a round. And then at the trial, she was like, well, he actually made me feel I was more afraid of him with the gun, even though he was trying to save her from being raped and he was trying to be like white knight.
Fucking
she
women.
like threw him under the bus. And so anybody, do not get involved. Just like let it happen. Just like look after yourself. And the last thing I wanted to say, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but I find it really funny how Europeans are very, very smug about their transit system, that they bike, they take the train, and Americans always take the car all over the place. They're finally starting to get why they are like that. Like there was the scientist guy. I think he was like he worked for NASA, or he was a Nobel Prize winner or something. He was just riding his bike and those kids ran him down intentionally. And they filmed it.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
And this lady that got stabbed on the train, like they now understand, like, oh, that's why you guys love your cars. That's why you guys refuse to use trans. Now they kind of get it. So
yeah.
Anyway, a lot to unpack there.
It is a bit safer, but good points. All right, thanks, man. All right, we'll take a couple of calls, and then we have Michael Tracey joining us in about 10 minutes' time. Phone lines are now closed. You had your opportunity to call in, you fucking animals, and you blew it. All right. People just cannot unmute themselves, huh? All right. Oh, God, of course. Hello.
Hey, Danny, this is Max.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, I had a couple of things.
Yeah, go ahead.
One, a previous caller said that, like, Slavic people were white.
Yeah.
Me, myself, like, families from Poland. If you go to the Coalition for Communities of Color website, they have Slavic people listed on there.
As a person of color?
Yeah, go to the website. It's on there about.
Crazy. Slavic people are white. This is fucking... So Slavs not white?
I call ourselves gray. I put us in that category. But that's just mostly as a joke.
Yeah. Well... Go ahead.
Yeah, then the next thing I was going to say is the politically, like, neutral girlfriend or wife. That's, like, spot on. My girlfriend, she's just like, I just want to go shopping. I just want to have a house and have some kids. And she just plays Animal Crossing.
Literally, that's all you want. You like, I used to always think, like, oh, you see some girl playing Candy Crush, and I'm just like, what a vapid retard. Now I'm just like, that's what you want. You want some girl just playing Candy Crush. She doesn't have any opinions about anything. You ask her, you don't even ask her, did you see this thing in the news? Because you know she didn't. And when it comes time to vote, you just be like, this is who we're voting for, and that's it. Like, none of this, like... her having strong opinions. She can have strong opinions about who should win American Idol.
Yeah, that's pretty much, yeah, that's spot on.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want an opinionated woman, period.
Oh, makes it easy.
Yeah.
And the next thing I was going to just follow up on was the birth rates.
Yeah.
I think those will, like, dip down and then climb back up, at least like in the U.S., because, like, conservative families have more kids, and it's the.
I mean, this like poll that I referenced was conservatives as well. These are conservative Gen Zs. Like, these are at the prime of their baby making years, and the guys are into having kids. And again, I guess it's at least the guys are, like, like think that kids are number one, so at least they could just put pressure on the women to be like, yo, we're having a bunch of kids. And probably once you have one kid, then you're probably a little more amenable to having more, assuming you're like of the right age. But you know, it's still it's still not ideal.
Yeah, there was a couple of things I saw, and it's if the partner in a relationship with like the more radical politics, it doesn't even necessarily like have to be like you're like crazy politically, but it's just like you believe more deeply in like one way, the other partner will get dragged over.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think so conservative men, like eventually women by default will just kind of maybe drift back over. And then the second part was the children per women hasn't really changed too much. It's gone down a little bit, but it's like the number of people having children has gone down. It's not the children per woman.
Right. It's just like if you have children, like you'll have enough. But it's, yeah, I mean, look, liberal Gen Zers, their lowest priority is having children. So you can only imagine that overall that's going to, like, conservatives would probably have to be having fucking 4 kids a pop to like balance that out.
Yeah, Catholic families will do that.
Yeah, but does this shit exist anymore? Like, does the Catholic family that had 9 kids exist currently in America?
I'd like to think maybe, but
I feel like it doesn't.
My church is pretty boomery.
That's what I'm saying. You go to a Catholic church?
I do, yeah. And
anybody showing up with in their 40s with 9 kids?
There are some younger families, but the thing that sticks out to me the most is that there are, I never see like single women going there, like 20s, early 30s. It'll be like a single dude in his 30s, unless it's family. So it's just like dudes going by.
Yeah, not great. All right, cool, man. I gotta let you go, but thanks for calling in. All right, let's take another call. We're just waiting for Michael to join the show. Michael Tracey joining the show very shortly. Once he does, we'll go to a break, and then we'll be back with him. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail.
Yo, Danny, how you doing, man?
What's happening?
Oh, I'm chilling. This is Jack, man. I called into the bathhouse a couple months ago about my crazy Italian girlfriend.
Right. Yeah. I recognize your voice. How'd that all go?
Yeah, we are done. I took your, I hope, thankfully I didn't have to take your advice and I didn't need a prenup, but
yeah,
I'll use that for the next one.
All right. Well, good to hear. Yeah, there were some flags there.
But I'd say I'm way better off without her, but I did see someone talking shit in the comments, like, about someone else later on that had called in, and they were like, God damn it, why is everyone trying to make this a dating show? So
hey, it's an everything show.
Talk about that today.
It's an everything. It's called Open Lines.
It's
called Open Lines for a reason.
That's what keeps us. What keeps us coming back.
Yeah.
So she was actually a huge fucking fan of Sadia Khan. So I felt so vindicated when I heard you guys covering her on the Boys.
Another red flag.
Yeah, I got my comeuppance with that. But no, I'm calling because I want to talk. First, I want to ask you, man, there's a Bay Area rapper named AWACS. You probably never heard of him, right?
No.
Well, he's not very well known, but he does have a song with King ISO where it is called Bag Up. And in the song, he says, only worth $1 million, but where I'm from, that makes me hella rich. I've been taxing fucked up people too. Free Martin Shkreli, bitch.
Oh yeah.
And I would like Martin Shkreli to know that. I mean, obviously he's a fan of hip hop.
Yeah, he's a big
from
hip
the
hop
slums
guy.
of Shaolin. He should know that AWACS Bag Up does reference him.
Cool. I'll let him know
if you want to pass it along. But more on brand for the show. I'm calling because I want to talk about Jews.
Okay. Let's talk about them. Be quick, though, because Michael just joined, so we got to be quick.
All right, cool, man. Well, specifically, I want to talk about, fucking Lansky, Meyer Lansky.
Meyer Lansky.
You know, the mob's accountant.
Yeah.
Built Las Vegas.
Uh-huh.
Do you know about Operation Underworld?
I don't, no.
So Operation Underworld was like this very little known mention in there was a movie where Harvey Keitel played Meyer Lansky. It was on Amazon Prime called Lansky, but they like barely mentioned it, barely glossed over it. But basically the naval OSS, naval intelligence during World War II, which is basically like the grandfather of the modern day CIA. It's where all of that was born from. They cut a deal with Lansky to basically agree to a ceasefire at all the ports to try to catch Nazi sympathizers on our shores, on the eastern seaboard. Because at that time, the ports were all controlled by the mob. They cut this deal with Lansky where they agreed to a ceasefire, which meant that they would stop stealing all this shit, which was going to our allied troops.
Okay.
And in exchange, they got Lucky Luciano, head of the Luciano crime family, out of jail. But part of the terms of his release was he had to get deported back to Italy. He went there and then was basically doing the same thing there, was working with our allied troops to fight Nazis over there.
Crazy. No, I didn't know that, but I'll check it out. Anyways, I got to let you go just because we have Michael waiting here. But
do your thing, man. Operation Underworld. Check it out.
Oh, I will. Good talking to you. All right, everybody. We will be back after a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be joined with Michael Tracey. See you shortly. All right. And we are back. Joining me in the second hour today, Michael Tracey. How's it going, man?
Doing well. How about you?
Yeah. Thank you for thinking. I'm doing all right. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. You've been causing quite the shitstorm on the internet. And It is fun to watch. So I promised, I don't know when maybe a month or two, probably 2 months ago, whenever the Epstein stuff, when they were just like, we're not getting it. I kind of had like a mini meltdown where I was like, conspiracies are stupid. What is the point of any of these? We're going to be fucking 80 years old being like, oh, we're just like the JFK people being like, we're just waiting for that document to drop. Finally going to find out what happened with the Epstein stuff. And I was like, I'm never talking about this again. But you're actually the only person who actually has something to say about Epstein. You have some research about this stuff that is counter to what pretty much everybody else talks about. Fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that's fair to say.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if people, if they don't follow you on Twitter, you can check them out because you're good follow, you got a good Substack. But so I get, because you've been taking a lot of heat for this. People calling you like saying you're, what do they say? You're like,
that means you're over the target, right?
Right. Correct. Okay. So tell me what everyone is getting wrong on this whole Epstein stuff, because, all the story, everybody's like, he's Mossad, his, child sex trafficking, blackmail, all this stuff. You seem to have done, and you have your receipts. You're not just, because most people are just talking shit. Like they're like, yeah, I read some tweets and I formed my opinion on this. So what are we all missing on this Epstein stuff?
Yeah, well, there's been a total collapse of journalistic standards and just factual standards around this story. And that applies both to the so-called mainstream media, like CNN is now Epstein Central, 24/7 Jeffrey Epstein updates. But interestingly, and a little bit peculiarly, the so-called alternative media, like the podcast sphere, social media, is also heavily invested in the Epstein story. And although people in the alt media sphere tend to claim that they revile the mainstream media, there's basically a convergence on this story, meaning there are shared premises, and there's not the kind of conflict or dispute that you would tend to associate with, let's say, roughly speaking, the podcast media sphere and the so-called mainstream media. So I think that's an interesting and unusual dynamic that's worth interrogating a little bit. And so what are some of those shared premises? Well, basically, there's a shared premise that Jeffrey Epstein was running a pedophilic sex trafficking operation that was sprawling, that implicated legions of prominent individuals, and it was enforced by blackmail. I guess the people on the internet tend to emphasize the blackmail thing a little bit more because they insinuate that it involves Mossad or some other intelligence agency.
And like all politicians are captured kind of thing. There's
something like this. Yes. I mean, there's a genuine ideology that's now incredibly pervasive online, which holds that the U.S. government, U.S. foreign policy, basically the structures of our society and just, I guess, societal order are fundamentally dictated by the presumed existence of sexual blackmail rings. And so if something happens with government policy that one dislikes, one is now expected to immediately surmise that that's because of sexual blackmail, particularly in the realm of foreign policy, and particularly with Israel. And I've been a big critic of U.S. foreign policy for as long as I've been a conscious person, and I've done it also journalistically for as long as I've been a journalist, so since around 2010. And so I'm not one to shy away from making strident critiques, if necessary, of U.S. foreign policy, in particular in relation to Israel. But now everything has become so absurdly dominated by this idea that what's fundamentally driving U.S. foreign policy in relation to Israel is like the Jeffrey Epstein sexual blackmail operation, and it's an absurdity because people don't bother to actually look into the facts that supposedly undergird that premise that they've come to so confidently and loudly say they believe in. And the notion of a pedophilic sexual blackmail ring is like so radically unsubstantiated that it really does veer into just outright fiction for the most part. And people don't like hearing that. I think people are weirdly gratified by the notion that they are invested in, that something like that does exist, because I don't know, it scintillates them or tantalizes them. And it gives them like a neat little sort of explanatory prism for what goes on in the real world, and I can see why it might be comforting. I think it's like a little bit bizarre and disturbing that people are so desperate to want to believe this. Like, why would you want to believe that child predation, like actual sexual predation against actual children, is utterly ubiquitous? Like, wouldn't that be horrible?
And state mandated.
Yeah, state enforced, or
yeah.
But
I guess there's an element too where they're like, well,
I think a lot of these people don't even really care about child sex predation that much. They just like this sort of fantastical narrative that they can concoct out of it.
Right. And there, I guess there'd be some element where you're like, well, of course there would be no evidence of this happening. Right. When you're like, well, there's no evidence. And you go, well, obviously there wouldn't be evidence because they'd be hiding this stuff. So it does kind of go in the realm of conspiracy theory, but then so many of these things have blended with, I guess, reality, where people are like, it's a conspiracy theory, but they're also like, that's my reality, I suppose.
Well, what reality is that? I guess an alternative
I guess,
reality.
Yes, an alternative reality.
I mean, yeah, you're right that absence of evidence is taken to be as evidence.
Yeah, absence of evidence.
Which is like it's like unfalsifiability. There's this concept in philosophy where, in order to actually engage empirically, driven, empirically founded reasoning, you have to allow for falsifiability, meaning claims need to be able to be falsified with contradicting or countervailing evidence. And if a claim, or like a truth claim, is not even susceptible to being falsified, then you've entered the realm of like religious dogma.
Yeah,
and I think that's the realm that this has entered into for a lot of people.
Interesting. Now there are a lot of, so I don't know, and maybe I have some facts where I go, you've probably maybe researched them more than me, but like when people talk about Epstein, because there is an element of like where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's these little things, like the what was it, the Attorney General of Florida, when they asked him, and he's like, I was told like to leave him alone.
Yeah, it was the U.S. Attorney.
U.S. Attorney for South Florida, Acosta, I believe. But so he was told like he's an intelligent asset. So you have these little kind of Easter eggs or whatever. So that's my question.
It's another myth. I mean, it's basically a myth. People, that's like the central prong of the folklore on the internet, in the internet Epstein space, as Daryl Cooper, one of these charlatans, calls it. That everything flows from their conviction that Alex Acosta, the U.S. Attorney for South Florida in 2007 and 2008, who then later joined the first Trump administration as the Labor Secretary, said that Epstein belonged to intelligence. And people, I guess, don't bother to actually examine what the provenance of that supposed report is. And it's
that we know for a fact. Like, at the end of the day, I'm a comedian. Like, I'm not reading fucking like
you shouldn't be expected to do it, but if like you're going to purport to be a journalist of some kind or in the media, I know like the distinction is hazy these days because everybody can be the media.
Yeah,
you're the media now, says Elon Musk. Okay, well, if so, how about we try to like encourage at least some minimal factual standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the standards are quite low now. I will concede that. So did Acosta never say that?
Well, here's the provenance of that purported quote, right? It was buried in one Daily Beast article in July of 2019, written by this person, Vicky Ward, who has a very dodgy journalistic track record. Actually did flattering profiles of Ghislaine Maxwell.
Okay.
In the early 2010s, because she was a social acquaintance of hers. And she had also written this 2003 Vanity Fair profile of Jeffrey Epstein that Vicky Ward would later go on, especially after Epstein's death, to try to make central to her identity as though Vicky Ward was this benighted truth teller, because this section that she had wanted to add at the last minute of the editorial process was basically struck or excluded by her editors. And what she wanted to add to this 2003 Vanity Fair profile were claims stemming from this person, Maria Farmer, who styles herself as like the original Epstein accuser because she claimed that she called the FBI to report a pedophile conspiracy around Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton and Donald Trump and Leslie Wexner in 1996. And this person is just a total lunatic. I don't say that lightly, please, you can go. I have a copy of this interview that she did with this other charlatan, Whitney Webb, in 2020, where she's just hallucinating. A wild claim after wild claim. She claims that she was held captive in Ohio on the compound of Leslie Wexner, this billionaire, multi-billionaire.
He's a Victoria's
retailer.
Secret.
What's that?
He's a Victoria's Secret guy, right?
Yeah, Victoria's Secret. He owned.
But he did have some sex stuff, though, did he not? Did Leslie Wexner not have some criminal problems involving some?
I'm not aware of him having criminal problems involving sex. I could be missing something.
Or like wasn't he forced to like give up? See, again, there's so many things where I go like, is this exactly what happened? But I thought Leslie Wexner had some legal or something with Victoria's Secret where he had to step down from the board.
It's possible, but either way, what Maria Farmer claims is just total lunacy. She claims that she was held captive on this New Albany, Ohio compound of Wexner that she had voluntarily gone to, but because she says that she's being held. She had been kidnapped and held captive because there are Doberman retrievers on the property, that there are sharpshooters who are waiting to, I guess, murder her, and also that there are, and also that the Jewish mafia, that's what she says, is on the scene.
Okay.
And yeah, she also says that she had her younger brothers come and stay with her while she was in captivity. It's crazy.
It just doesn't pass the
people. And also,
test.
she was 26 years old when she says that while she was at this Ohio compound, she was invited to join Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein in bed. So this has nothing to do with pedophilia, even if it were true, which it almost certainly isn't. And she voluntarily and consensually climbs into bed. She starts to rub Jeffrey Epstein's foot, she says. Maybe there's a kernel of truth to some of that. And then she says somehow, like, one thing leads to another, and like one of the two touches her breast, and then she realizes she's been sexually assaulted. And she also claims, and this is years after the fact, that she in that moment realized that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were pedophiles. So I don't know how a sexual act, even if you're going to claim it's assault involving a 26-year-old woman, would somehow make her realize that they were pedophiles. But she claims that, like, she received some kind of divine message and had this realization, which of course she probably like backfilled years later. And she's currently suing the FBI as of May of this year, claiming that because of all of this like psychic anguish and turmoil that she's been through for 30 plus years as a result of her, her experiences from the mid 1990s, PTSD, nightmares, just like general mental insanity, that she's entitled to $600 million in a class action lawsuit from U.S. taxpayers to compensate her, because she says that she called the FBI and tried to report Epstein, and she could have like saved all these girls or these women, right? I'm sorry. If the FBI took this woman seriously, that would have been the problem. That's how insane she is. And Vicky Ward wanted to insert basically the tall tale of this woman into the Vanity Fair profile. It got nixed, rightly so, by the editors who were thankfully a little bit more rational than Vicky Ward. And she's tried to use this in sort of like post 2019 when Epstein was arrested and then died in federal custody to make her whole identity like she was like this bold truth teller or something very early on in the early 2000s around Epstein, and it's just nonsense. So she had this July 2019 Daily Beast article in which she purports to be reporting this quote, right? And it's not in the headline. Like, you think if this was the bombshell spoken gun evidence that Epstein had belonged to intelligence, right? And that's why he got the so-called sweetheart deal, which is another term that's been invented by people in the Florida prosecution in 2007, 2008. You think that'd be like a screaming headline, right? Breaking news: Epstein was an intelligence asset. It's buried, like they bury the lead. That's like a journalistic term. And the quote is it's like quadruple hearsay essentially. So she said, Vicky Ward says that she was told this 2 or 3 years before 2019 by who she characterizes as a former senior Trump White House official, and 2 or 3 years before 2019, she was told this by the former senior Trump White House official that Alex Acosta said he was told that Epstein belonged to intelligence, and that therefore, according to Vicky Ward, Alex Acosta was intimidating to backing off. Now, it's like triple or quadruple hearsay. It would never be admissible anywhere. Vicky Ward never did any like real follow up on it. It's never been corroborated in any other reports. I mean, there's been massive journalistic resources devoted to this story for 15 years or more, like, or 10 years at least. Definitely a ton since 2019, and like she's never thought to follow up on it. Like, really?
Yeah. And Alexander Acosta just denied it.
Well, and then Alex Acosta he participated in a review of the whole non-prosecution agreement negotiation related to the Florida prosecution of Epstein in 2008. And he was asked under oath and under penalty of perjury by Department of Justice investigators. And you go read a very lengthy report, 350 pages on this, that was published in 2020. And Alex Acosta is asked about if he had knowledge that Epstein was an intelligence asset. And he says, again, under oath and under penalty of perjury, the answer is no. And none of these like internet folklorists had even been aware of this. I mean, they claim that they do so much research. Darryl Cooper, Whitney Webb, all these people, they claim they do so much research. Both essentially have admitted to me this summer that they had never even been aware of this report. Like, even if you want to criticize the report or claim it's not dispositive of anything, to not even be aware of it shows that they're so myopic and like blinkered in their supposed research, and they can't be relied upon at all as credible sources on this. So yeah, a lot of the internet uproar and hysteria is fueled by a bunch of so-called Epstein researchers who are just basically charlatans.
Yeah, they're not really reading these 350-page reports, which again I would never do. And
they had a premise. They didn't bother to investigate whether that Vicky Ward quote was really even credible, and they never bothered to even search for any potential countervailing evidence, which is like totally inimical to any kind of rational inquiry into this stuff. Literally, I'm the one who had to email these people just within the past like month or so, 6 weeks. And to ask them, like they parade around as though they're these huge experts on Epstein. They're like brought in for all these emergency podcasts to educate the masses about Epstein, and they're just jokes. So yeah, but that quote is just kind of still believed and recited. Although I think I've made some inroads into explaining to people the incredibly dubious basis for it or sourcing of it.
It's not like some
but because people just kind of absorb that quote that they assumed like must have been like totally like authoritatively reported or something, and then they sort of have that whole mythology or ideology spring from that quote, you know?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, and I didn't even know it was originated from a Daily Beast article, but under any other circumstance, I would never believe a word that the Daily Beast writes.
It's another irony.
Yeah,
I
like
I've written for the Daily Beast. I mean, it's not like anything that appears on there can be just discounted.
I mean, I used to read it.
Yeah,
like there was a
you
time.
gotta do some critical thinking, right?
Sure. And when you talk about the sweetheart deal, because you seem to, I'm sure you've researched this, did he not in fact receive any kind of sweetheart deal? Was this kind of actually quite run of the mill deal, maybe for someone?
Well, it definitely wasn't run of his mill,
or someone of his
run of the mill,
resources,
because
maybe?
it was very unique for somebody who had that vast of resources at his disposal, that vast of wealth, to be charged federally, or to be investigated or pursued federally in relation to like a sex crime. Now he wasn't charged federally because what the feds did, what Alex Acosta did as U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, what he did is that he interceded in what had at that point been an ongoing state level prosecution of Epstein out of Palm Beach County, and there were huge evidentiary problems with that Palm Beach investigation because a lot of the purported victims either recanted their stories, or they wanted to exonerate Epstein. They wanted Epstein not to be prosecuted. They wanted to prosecute. Some of them called for prosecuting other girls rather than Epstein. And some of the girls, had basically admitted to lying about their ages, meaning the underage ones, the ones who are below the legal age of consent in Florida, which is 18, which is basically the highest in the world. Some of them who were under the age of 18 had been told by other girls who might be slightly older to lie about their ages so they can go to Epstein's Palm Beach house, perform a massage of varying degrees of sexualization. I mean, there wasn't like even a sexual act on each occasion. And I'm not defending or condoning Epstein. I mean, he was a total moron to even put himself in this kind of position in the first place. But there were big evidentiary problems with the Palm Beach case, and then it gets turned, and then the feds intercede because the local Palm Beach police detective Joe Riccari complains that in his opinion, the case is being slow walked by the Palm Beach district attorney. So then the feds intercede, and the resolution that's come up with is that the feds want to require Epstein to agree to a non-prosecution agreement that would preclude him from federal indictment, but would compel him to plead guilty to 2 state-level charges in Florida. And without that federal intercession, it was feared, or it was suspected, probably rightly, that he wasn't going to have as severe a punishment as the feds thought that he should be inflicted with, because he was indicted in July of 2006 by the Palm Beach grand jury, but the charge was just felony solicitation of prostitution, which is essentially relates to adults, and wouldn't have required him to, for example, register as a sex offender or even necessarily serve a term in prison. But as a result of that federal intercession, Epstein had to plead guilty to a second charge that the feds added. The feds also compelled him to plead guilty to on a state level. And again, this arrangement really was unusual. It was very convoluted, but it was an unusual situation because, Epstein also was able to hire very high-powered, politically influential defense counsel. Alan Dershowitz, Ken Starr, Roy Black, Jay Lefkowitz, and they made every argument they could possibly muster on Epstein's behalf, which is what defense counsel are supposed to do. But Epstein ultimately, he couldn't convince the DOJ to sort of he couldn't convince the DOJ's political leadership in Washington, D.C. to call off Acosta and tell Acosta that there's no federal nexus here, which is what Epstein and his lawyers wanted. They wanted it to be a state-level case because then he would get a more lenient punishment.
Yeah, makes sense.
But the feds refused, and he did end up having to plead guilty to a second state-level charge in Florida, which did require him to register as a sex offender, did require him to serve a term of incarceration in Florida, 13 months, and did require him to agree to a scheme or a mechanism whereby he would have to pay monetary damages civilly to individuals that the government identified but hadn't adjudicated as victims. So it was an unusual arrangement, no doubt about it. But I think it's just kind of like flatly call it a sweetheart deal, which is just like a term of art that was invented by journalists like years later. I think it's not
like, it's almost like retroactively.
I think it's kind of misleading.
Yeah, like retroactively they apply that term out with all the information that they have out of it. I have a question from the chat. This is from Blank Jenkins. He says, given that the government said a minute of footage wasn't recorded every night, and then another branch of the government subsequently released the supposedly unrecorded footage, why do you think the government lied about that?
So what was the other branch of the government that then released?
Well, this is just the question. He basically says that because there was that missing minute from the original video, then they released that minute, which showed nothing. But essentially what he's asking is...
I actually haven't even seen the newly released minute.
There's nothing.
Ask the commenter who released it, because
I think it was in that last batch, like last week. They released like 32,000 pages last week.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Whatever, and
so
they go, they're like, here's that minute.
Okay, yeah, I haven't got a chance to look at that.
Yeah, but essentially, I guess what he's asking is... I don't know which, because I don't know which branches of government he's referencing. So,
well, I mean, the branch of government that he would be referencing, I don't know if they're different branches. They're probably different agencies within. Oh, actually, you know what? Because
that was a federal detention center.
If this missing minute came out last week, that would have been through the House Oversight Committee, which had subpoenaed the DOJ for records, and then they did a dump last week, which was kind of like a phony maneuver on their part.
Yeah, didn't they just release stuff that had already been released?
Yeah, I think like 99% of it had already been in the public domain. I'm not even sure what the 1% was. I haven't even got a chance to really look into it thoroughly yet. I don't think there's anything that interesting, although who knows? I mean, I'll have to wait till I'm able to look through it. But that was basically just a political maneuver on the part of like Mike Johnson and the House Republican leadership, because they're trying to preempt this discharge petition that's being run by Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, and I think they only need like 2 more Republicans to sign on to the discharge petition. So they wanted to basically make it look as though they were placating other Republicans who claim that they want more Epstein files, and so they put out this dump, which is kind of just redundant and superfluous. And there are problems with that Massey kind of bill anyway, but that dump I think was just kind of a political sort of ploy that Mike Johnson and his House GOP leadership kind of cooked up. But the missing minute refers to the footage that the DOJ and FBI released on July 6th.
Yeah,
that fateful memo that then triggered this whole outrage, right? I've been calling it the summer of Epstein.
Right. Feels like it.
The best summer of my life, like this song, like the summer of '69 or something.
Yeah.
There is that footage where it's from one particular. We've known that this footage existed for years. There were other cameras which it's been said were non-operational in the vicinity of Epstein's cell in the federal jail in Manhattan, but there was another camera that had like a different angle that wasn't quite trained on the cell door, but showed sort of the entry type area or maybe lobby area.
Yeah, like the steps kind of. And
exactly. And
to the pod.
There was supposedly a missing minute because like every night at midnight or something, the camera resets. So that was the claim. Look, I mean, I think what would I attribute that to? Yeah, because obviously you got to, if you're putting out that stuff or putting out that footage and there's a missing minute, even if you give an explanation for it, that's going to be fodder for people to make all kinds of salacious inferences, right? So I would more attribute that to the total hucksterism and incompetence and stupidity of Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, and Kash Patel, the FBI director, and Dan Bongino, the deputy FBI director. I mean, I have no brief for them at all. Yeah. I think I think they're hucksters. I was trying to tell people that during the 2024 election when everybody was, riling everybody up to go vote for the Republican ticket because they're going to, they got to get them in and they'll defeat the deep state. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah. I mean, I do find it hilarious that Dan Bongino literally had merch about Epstein not killing himself.
Oh, did he? I haven't even seen that. I wouldn't be surprised.
He did. Like when he had his Rumble, Rumble show, like he literally had merch and then he gets in and he's like, I don't know what to tell you
sure
guys.
He did. He's kind of a psycho.
Yeah. So, and we're going to open the phone lines in a bit. So, you read this.
He has so little emotional control that like in the week following that Epstein, that memo that came out, like he had a whole hissy fit blow up in the Oval Office and stormed out and like left town and went back to Florida.
Yeah. They were saying that like he was going to resign that weekend.
Yeah. He never did.
Yeah. He never did. Yeah. But they were talking about, they were trying to be like, the rumors were like, oh, they talked him into staying, I guess, and whatever. But I mean, I guess there is some element where him and Kash Patel was similar. Kash Patel was going on podcasts being like, he 100% didn't kill himself.
In December of 2023, he was on Benny Johnson's podcast. Benny Johnson now is just a full-time government apparatchik.
Yeah.
Basically just doing the bidding of Trump day in and day out. I mean, what a pathetic way to live.
Yeah. I don't even know if he gets paid for it. He definitely has a vibe of like, just please acknowledge me. Like a kind of like a teacher's pet.
He got millions of dollars from that like shady Russian operation.
From Russia. Yeah. But I'm saying the U.S. government.
I'm sure he makes plenty of money, and other, more, above board ways as well. Because, he's got a big presence and there's a big audience for that stuff, clearly.
Yeah.
But it's just pathetic, I think. And, I would say that if somebody was doing it for Biden or Obama or anybody, it's not even unique to Trump, but Trump happens to be in power. But on that Benny Johnson podcast in December of 2023, Kash Patel, as a private citizen, hawking his podcast stuff, his merch, his like cash, I forget what, like he had cash, like, products or something you could buy. On that podcast, he said to Benny Johnson, he directed a message to the then FBI director, Christopher Wray, and said, put on your big boy pants and tell us where the pedophiles are, because according to Kash Patel, Christopher Wray had like a list of just prominent pedophiles sitting on his desk or in a vault
that he was just hiding,
and it was just total fantasy.
Yeah.
And Kash Patel shot himself in the foot. I do think Kash Patel should resign, because if he were willing to make such flamboyant and unsubstantiated claims against the former FBI director, and now he's in that very same position, the position where he was accusing his predecessor of having access to a list of pedophiles, but was covering it up for nefarious reasons, and that was just like total bullshit, then, I think as a matter of just like, dignity or something, he should resign, but he won't, because He could just suck up to Trump and do whatever he wants, and that's all he has to do in order to keep his job.
Yeah, I feel like in a different era of politics, pre-Trump, that maybe would have been the case, but now it's just the rules are
pre-Trump. There never would have been an FBI director with the background of Kash Patel.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm saying just like, they always said it with Trump, where it's like, man, if a politician said one of the things Trump said, that would preclude you from being the president.
Sure.
And
Kash Patel is the first, I think, maybe ever FBI director who's just a pure, unbridled political appointee.
Yeah.
Like, because the norm had been, and I'm not saying this was even like a defensible norm per se, but the norm had been that the FBI director would serve a 10-year term, which is unusually long, because the idea was that it would sort of be like the nomination would be sort of immune to the typical partisan political pressures. So people who would get appointed were seen as apolitical anyway. Doesn't mean they had no political ideology, but they weren't seen as like ardent partisans. And Trump did away with that, and he just appointed like essentially a lackey of his, Kash Patel, and which led to then Christopher Wray's term being cut off before the 10-year.
Who Trump nominated?
Yeah, Trump nominated. That's right. Trump nominated Christopher Wray in 2017 after he fired James Comey.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that is I don't think norms are sacrosanct, but that is a norm that Trump has in fact sort of overturned in a way. So now we have a pure political appointee FBI director who clearly is just, his entire job security is predicated solely on doing the bidding of Trump, taking direction from Trump. And so that's what he's doing. And yeah, I think in another timeline, if somebody was humiliated the way that he's been over this Epstein stuff, they ought to have resigned. I think it's going to tarnish his entire tenure. Because there's no getting around that he said this stuff, and then it couldn't have been a more humiliating backfire on him once he actually got in power. But so long as
it's not going away. I mean, it's funny that it's the CNNs of the world who are not letting this go away, because they actually see a kind of like pain point, like weakness point, where they go, "Hey, this was your whole thing. Yeah, like where's the list? We want the list now."
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm saying that there's this weird convergence or synergy between the CNNs of the world and also these like alt media podcast types who are conspiracy adjacent, conspiracism, think Joe Rogan and his sort of like orbit of people, and then other people on, it's like all encompassing the people who are invested in this stuff. I'm not denying that I'm invested. I totally am, but it's from a radically different angle from most people, because I just feel that there's such a huge wealth of under-examined material. That's why they threw me out of that press conference last week, because I asked, one of the only, if not the only, critical or skeptical journalistic question that any of these people are ever asked.
Yeah, let's talk about that press conference actually. Yeah. So you were at it was the survivors. Or what were they what do they call themselves? Like the survivors?
Yeah, so they call them themselves melodramatically survivors or victims or whatever. But yeah,
and you were invited by Ro Khanna?
Yeah, I was invited by Ro Khanna's staff several weeks ago when the press conference was first announced.
Okay, and so
I had been in communication with Ro Khanna about different aspects of the Epstein issue, particularly about this 15 plus hours of interview footage, on camera video footage that Steve Bannon has of his interviews with Jeffrey Epstein,
which he said he was going to release, but he's not.
He's never really. I mean, he skirts the issue. He dissembles. He said he was going to release it years ago and never did. He said there was going to be some bogus documentary that never came out.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he just release the full footage now? He could upload it tonight, unedited.
Well,
unedited.
He's probably not going to make money off of that.
Well,
I'm sure he's
all right. Too bad. He makes
plenty
of money with.
He owns 1% of Seinfeld, doesn't he?
He has plenty of money. Okay.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to bank on the Jeffrey Epstein footage.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure he would love to monetize it. But either way, But the idea was that Ro Khanna told me that he would contemplate having that footage subpoenaed, because if there's anybody that we know beyond any doubt possesses really explosive Epstein files, quote unquote, it's Steve Bannon. He's got this 15 hours of interview footage, and Epstein never did an on-camera video style interview other than this. So that's how I was in touch with Ro Khanna over that. I've also known him in the past. I've interviewed him. So yeah, his staff invited me.
You got kicked out?
Well, what happened was, you had to be escorted in by the staff to like the main press conference area. So that's how I got in, right? Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't like a trespasser.
Yeah. You weren't trespassing, but you got to. And then what was your question?
Well, I mean, a little bit by way of a little bit of background or context, prior to the main press conference with Thomas Massey, Ro Khanna, Bradley Edwards, this extortionist victim's lawyer, and then the quote unquote survivors, most of whom were just obviously fake. There was like a
fake in what sense? Like that they literally had no connection with him, or they were just like willing participants.
They embellished, they exaggerate. A lot of them were full-fledged adults when they claimed that they were sexually victimized. So they trotted out all these women who were in their 20s.
And they have a real financial incentive to do this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, they've made millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they made this part central to their identity. But prior to the main press conference, there was this like secondary event, like they called it, I think it was a survivors rally or something, and a bunch of those so-called survivors spoke, and Gloria Allred, the lawyer, spoke, who's like a Me Too lawyer essentially.
Oh yeah. Most famous.
So what I did was I tried to interview. This is supposedly a press conference, right? So they're inviting journalists to come ask questions. But I go and I ask a bunch of these supposed victims questions, and I try to be polite about it. I know I'm not the most like pleasant person to necessarily interact with, but I'm trying to be cordial and polite. But they got so flustered at just asking kind of just basic journalistically skeptical questions that a bunch of the so-called victims had had already decided that they didn't want to talk to me, right? And they thought I was some kind of interloper, right? So then when the main press conference came and I was in, waiting for a turn to ask my question and asked it, I think you can see on the video, like a bunch of the so-called victims behind the podium seemed to recognize me. So they're all like murmuring and whispering amongst themselves. And they tell Bradley Edwards, who was like the ringleader, who's like emceeing the press conference and who represented a bunch, the chronic fabricator, Virginia Giuffre, don't answer him, because I asked a question that they would have had a difficult time answering, or the lawyer would have had a difficult time answering, which is this woman who you had represented for many years and who had filed motions on her behalf where she introduced these sprawling child sex trafficking theories and blackmail theories and accused prominent people of heinous child sex crimes, and then had to recant much of them. Why is it that we should believe this person has any credibility at all? Because she was being hailed, this woman, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, who's like the central Epstein accuser. Without her, we're not talking about this today. She was being hailed throughout this press conference as some kind of like saint, newly beatified saint. Bradley Edwards declared her an American hero.
Yeah. I mean, I said it when she got hit by the bus. Remember when she was like, I remember when that came out and she's like,
claimed she did.
Well, she claimed she did. And I remember she's like, I got hit by a school bus going 100 miles an hour, which I'm like, I don't know if school buses go 100 miles an hour first. And then she goes, doctors told me I have exactly 4 days to live. And I was like, that sounds pretty fishy to me.
I don't know how to exactly psychologically diagnose this person. I never was her therapist, or, thank God. But there was something totally off the wall about her. Like she seemed delusional. That's why her estranged husband, who it was said that she had violently attacked earlier this year, was granted custody of their older children. And the bias in those kinds of proceedings, like child welfare proceedings, is usually with the mother.
Yeah,
right?
Big time.
But in this instance, they took the children away from the mother because she was reported to be,
and she's rich.
Increasingly delusional, increasingly violent,
and
increasingly unstable. And then she has this whole thing where she's supposedly in this bus crash. She basically, she's a chronic defamer, right? And her lawyers enabled her. But now, she goes, one of her last hurrahs is to try to defame this, unsuspecting bus driver driving a bus full of children that she claimed, sped into her 100 miles an hour. Really? Zero evidence for that. It seems like the car that she was in, it was being driven by someone else. It was being driven by an older woman, and it swerved into a lane or something, and then the bus just nicked it. And it was like a minor fender bender. It wasn't even severe enough that it would have had to be reported to the police. Bizarrely enough, the bus driver says he didn't even observe Virginia Roberts in the car.
Wow.
So who knows if she was even in this car, because the injuries that she supposedly claimed that she sustained from this bus crash could not have arisen from the bus crash. It's another fantasy that she concocted. But then she goes to the hospital, right? She has these supposedly like, grievous wounds. Who knows where the hell she got them? She claims she has renal failure, which makes no sense. Like renal failure from a bus crash, really? And then she's reported dead. So I don't know.
But no doctor would ever tell you you have exactly 4 days to live. There's no doctor on earth who would say that specifically you have 4 days.
I don't know what happened to her. Maybe she's dead. I don't know. I just know that nothing that she ever said or did can be taken at face value absent any independent corroborating evidence. So I've attempted to obtain some. I have people in Australia filing records requests relating to the circumstances for death. Like there should be a police report, right? There should be a death certificate. There's supposedly a probate dispute now over her like lavish, maybe $30 million estate, given all the money that she extorted by virtue of her lawyers. And can't get any of it. I mean, the Australian public records law is different from the U.S., but like it's bizarre that I can't get anything.
So you think she might not even be dead?
I just got a rejection yesterday.
You think she might still be alive?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I'm saying I just need evidence. I need hard evidence to believe anything about her.
Right.
That's how chronic a fabricator she was. It's over and over again. She was a hoaxer. She got into QAnon delirium. She peddled this, like I'm saying a hoaxer in that there was this around 2020, 2021, right? There were these internet fraudsters who started claiming that they had somehow hacked Epstein's like computer systems and got like surveillance footage from his properties, which they claimed showed prominent people in sexually compromising positions, right? And they were going and shopping it around to people. They turned out to be just frauds.
Yeah.
But Virginia bought into it. She believed it. She amplified the claims, right? She falsely accused so many people. It's insane. I think it's not just Alan Dershowitz, to whom she had to formally recant the charges against, despite claiming that on at least 6 occasions, which she described in like lurid, graphic, disgusting detail, she had been sexually abused by him, and she described like, his ejaculation habits and stuff. Like she got really deep in, and then she recanted all of it. She just like threw a bunch of prominent people into the so-called memoir that she was writing that she wanted to make a bunch of money on by shopping it around to entertainment lawyers or entertainment, representatives and book agents. And she claimed there was a nonfiction account of like her experiences where she said like she saw Bill Clinton on the so-called Epstein Island. There's no evidence ever that Bill Clinton went to that island. She claimed that she had sex with like a Harvard professor, and then they had to recant that under deposition. And she just basically casually defamed a whole host of people for whom there was never any evidence presented ever that they ever met her, let alone had underage sex with her. Like, the the former governor of New Mexico, who's now deceased, can't defend himself, but being defamed still. Bill Richardson.
What about the Prince Andrew in that photo?
That one, Prince Andrew. So she claimed in 2014 in her motion for joinder that Bradley Edwards filed on her behalf, the guy who was running the press conference last week and blew my question off. She named 2 people in that motion as having sexually abused her as a child: Alan Dershowitz and Prince Andrew. And but she didn't file a lawsuit against Prince Andrew until years later in 2021, after she already got her cut of some of the settlement money that became available after Epstein's death. And and Prince Andrew, he vigorously denied the claims, but he did settle eventually the lawsuit because it was a peculiar situation. The British royal family has very opaque finances. It's not even clear if Andrew could have continued to pursue the lawsuit, even if he wanted to, because he didn't really have the purse strings. Who knows who does in the British royal family, right? It was his mother, the Queen Elizabeth II's Jubilee year. So like every 10 years, they celebrate her reign. She was like 95. She was obviously nearing death. And so, the idea was it would have a PR nightmare for like the final months of his beloved national icon mother's life. For her son, who was like, always had a reputation to be her favorite son, to be embroiled in this like PR nightmare in the United States over pedophilia.
Yeah.
So they settled, and the idea was that they would give a bunch of money to Virginia Roberts Giuffre's fake sex trafficking awareness NGO in Australia. It never did anything. It was just like a slush fund for her, essentially, and her lawyers. So I mean, this woman, it's unbelievable. I mean, I can believe it. I shouldn't say it's unbelievable, but it's astonishing and insulting, or should be, to anyone's intelligence
But what about the explanation of the photo?
Beatified in the way she is, and it's everywhere, and nobody challenges it because they don't want to be accused of being a pedophile.
But what about the photo of like the fact that they were in this photo together?
Well, I mean, there's dispute over the authenticity of the photo, but even if you want to stipulate that the photo is authentic, right? She would have been, that would have been from March of 2001. She would have been 17 in the photo, okay? Not to get too deep in the weeds of like the age of consent and stuff, which is not a topic I'm ordinarily that focused on.
Yeah.
But like it happens to be relevant here. The legal age of consent in England is 16. Supposedly that photo was taken in England. She would have been 17. Let's say, like hypothetically, she did engage in some kind of sexual act with Andrew.
It wasn't illegal.
It wouldn't have been illegal. It would have been illegal in Florida.
Yeah, and it would have been distasteful, surely.
I guess, but
to some.
But she claims anything that happened to her would have been illegal because she was supposedly a sex slave.
Right.
Which, I mean...
Now, I have a question, because so you did this press conference, all these women. What's the timeline of most of these women coming forward? My question is because, like, did they all, because with Gloria Allred connection, like, were they all just coming forward during Me Too for some giant cash grab?
It varies, right? So...
were any of them pre-2016?
What's that?
Were any of them pre-2016?
Yeah, like the Maria Farmer stuff.
Maria Farmer, yeah.
Nutcase.
Yeah.
That was supposed to come out through Vicky Ward in like 2003.
Okay.
There were lots of Jane Does who, the Palm Beach police investigation started against Epstein in 2005, right? So, there were girls, whether, some of whom were just above 18, let's say 18 to 21 or something, some of whom were younger, who were interviewed and had, in that sense, already come forward in that they had spoken to the government, the local government anyway. But, the drumbeat really began after, in 2019.
Yeah.
Virginia Roberts Giuffre had come out in public as of, when Bradley Edwards, the extortionist lawyer, filed that motion on her behalf, it was just before New Year's Eve in 2014, and she had still at that point was a quote unquote Jane Doe in the legal filing. But then she came out, she chose to come out publicly and put her name to it. I think the following month. Okay. So she had been out for a while. Others had been out in some capacity, but the real the floodgates really opened after Epstein, particularly after Epstein died in August of 2019. Because what happens then? Then the settlement money.
Right, there's
becomes
a
available,
huge
right?
pool
Because he has this huge estate, right? So that's when Epstein's, the lawyers for Epstein's estate, and then the lawyers representing his alleged victims who were filing lawsuits against the estate, they come up with some kind of like consolidated mechanism or program, essentially a mediation program to dole out money from Epstein's estate. So everybody wants a piece of that. Everybody who can even make the most tangential claim of having some connection with Epstein would want to get a piece of that. I probably would if I could do that, right? If I can get just a few million, if I can get millions of dollars,
yeah,
through a non-adversarial, confidential process, and then I'd probably do it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not the most pure-hearted person in the world.
What's the total women who have received money from this?
It's unclear because they're allowed to keep the settlements confidential.
So that news conference, that was not the totality of them.
Oh no, not at all. No, not at all. The number of supposed victims who have come out and publicly revealed themselves, revealed their names and so forth, is still a very small percentage of the total number of victims we're told exist. In that DOJ FBI memo on July 6th, that stirred up this whole sort of uproar. The government claims, or the DOJ and FBI claim, that Epstein, quote, harmed over 1,000 victims, but they don't specify who they're even talking about. Were these adults? Were these children? Because a bunch of the women that they trotted out at this press conference, were, again, full-fledged adult women in their 20s when they claim that they were victimized, but it all gets conflated together because, right, people think that, if there's an Epstein victim, that must mean there's a child sex trafficking victim, right? That's the popular conception. And so they don't clarify anything. They allow these conflations to just persist and be absorbed by the general public. The media doesn't dare to offer any clarifications because that's like re-victimizing the victims or
right,
worsening their trauma or something. And that's how you get this recipe for just moral hysteria and mass hysteria, moral panic, and it's continuing tonight because supposedly this Trump birthday book letter to Epstein came out, and everybody says, "Oh, this is smoking good evidence that I don't know what Trump is a pedophile." That makes zero sense. Although at this press conference, there were people waving signs saying Trump is a pedo. So you had Marjorie Taylor Greene, supposedly the number one MAGA lady on earth, or was anyway, is surrounded by these like signage that's surrounded by the signage accusing Donald Trump of being a pedophile based on nothing.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Crazy. All right, the phone lines are open. 1-888-949-2969. If you have any questions here from Michael, it is funny because to Epstein conspiracy theorist, you're a conspiracy theorist almost. You're like an alternate universe conspiracy theorist to them.
Yeah.
I just found that.
Well, I would love to ask him, what conspiracy theory did I posit here?
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I guess
it's just so foreign to them to hear anybody talking about this from my vantage point that they would assume I'm like an alien being or something.
Right. Yeah. And again, like with this, a lot of these things coming out and you go like, yeah, I mean, we learned through Me Too that like a lot of women will lie. I'm not saying they're all, not to be believed. I kind of am saying that, but no, you know what I mean? Like a lot of them do lie about shit. It's like, why
rationally investigate?
Why is it so crazy that they would lie about this stuff?
Well, I mean,
especially with the money involved.
You got to rationally investigate claims. Some of them, those claims of sexual misconduct or whatever, will end up being proven valid. Others will not. It's like not that complicated.
Yeah, like
but
surely
what's ironic is that in this particular case, you have all these right-wing tough guys on the internet, like Daryl Cooper or Benny Johnson. I saw, although he's not quite really a tough guy.
I don't know the tough guy.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah,
people would otherwise posture as being skeptical of like the tenets of Me Too, like believe women. Like we can't use our critical thinking faculties at all to evaluate claims by women against men. All of a sudden, they're like Me Too activists.
Yeah,
like they don't.
That is a good point. Yeah, that is like they're just like take them totally on their word. You said something actually I wanted to ask. So you said Bill Clinton did not go to Epstein Island. Was he not on the flight logs like a million times? Was that just use
he flew with Epstein?
Oh, he was on the plane, but not to the island.
No, it's 100% proven and confirmed that in 2002, Epstein provided his private plane to fly Bill Clinton. Ghislaine Maxwell was on that trip. Ghislaine Maxwell, she says in her proffer interview with the Deputy Attorney General recently, was much closer. Like the relationship with Bill Clinton was fundamentally hers. Epstein was sort of incidental. He was a rich guy with a plane, Maxwell says, right? So, but Epstein provided his plane in 2002, and it was Maxwell, Epstein, Bill Clinton, Secret Service, obviously, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, and others, and they flew to Africa. Right. And the idea was they were going to visit Bill Clinton's Clinton Foundation projects having to do with like AIDS prevention in Africa. Now, I've never been a huge fan of the Clinton Foundation. It's kind of a scammy enterprise for sure, influence peddling and so forth. But the idea that like it was a run of the mill trip, essentially, other than Epstein later came to have this reputation,
right?
So that Bill Clinton did take that flight, and I think there were some other flights, I think in 2003, but never been any evidence that Epstein ever went to that island, that Bill Clinton ever went to that island, aside from the hallucinations of this one person, Virginia Roberts Giuffre.
Yeah. What do you make of the painting? Just kind of like ribbing one of the boys. The
painting in his New York townhouse.
Yeah, the Bill Clinton in a blue dress.
I think Epstein was into like obviously weird sort of absurdist art.
Yeah.
I don't think there's no evidence that Bill Clinton ever saw that. Epstein, I think, bought the painting from like a local, it was like a local college student or something, artist. And it was meant to almost be like a parody or a social commentary on almost like the vacuousness of the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Right. So I don't know. People want to like infer all these crazy things from all these little data points. They want to dot connect everything. And it's just like, you said before, where there's smoke, there's fire. Right. I mean, I heard that constantly over the course of the Russiagate stuff. Trump, Russia. Right. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Yeah, we maybe don't have proof that Trump colluded with Putin to get himself installed in office as president in 2017, or that like Putin, manipulated the voting machines. But where there's smoke, there's fire, because, some guy in Trump's periphery, Mike Flynn, met with the Russian ambassador at the Republican convention, and Don Jr. exchanged DMs with WikiLeaks, maybe, and blah, 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 blah. All that was supposed to be smoke that stemmed from the supposed fire of like this collusion nonsense. And it was a farce. And I look at this Epstein stuff through almost the exact same prism. It's eerily reminiscent of how Russiagate functioned politically, and like the faulty epistemology that people were using to assess it. Except, I'm much more on an island now with this Epstein stuff, whereas at least during the Russiagate days, I had some people who agreed with me.
I guess you could say you're on Epstein's island.
I wish. It sounded like an awesome island.
Yeah. I mean, it did look like a nice place.
I would love to have taken a private jet. I mean, that's another thing that's kind of like, I guess, galling, right? A lot of these women were given like luxury accommodations.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, join me on my private jet to my luxury island in the Caribbean for like this paradise getaway. Right. And they volunteer to do it. They're adults. And years later, they try to like recast it all as sex trafficking so they can get like a couple $1 million. I find it grotesque. I mean, I find Epstein himself to be objectionable in certain respects, but there's something even more, there's something comparably, I think, disreputable about these women who are just like, just because they were kind of, attractive and in their early 20s could get like all this stuff showered on them.
Yeah.
And then they decide to like just reframe it as though they were trafficked, and who knows what even trafficking means. It's like a very nebulous concept that prosecutors love because they could just define it however the hell they want. It's like going from point A to point B. That means you're trafficked.
Yeah, you literally can't. That's like I talk about it all the time, but like they've essentially made it where the thing that like every professional athlete does, where they'll fly a woman in. You're like, that's sex trafficking. You're like, what? Mm-hmm. How's that sex trafficking?
If it's from one state to another, they can get you federally prosecuted.
Yeah, like you go to jail for fucking 10 years because you just like flew in a woman who was totally on her own will and wanted to do it, but because you bought her plane ticket.
Because they can claim it was coercion because they were reliant on him or dependent on him to pay for their travel. Right? Yeah. They can you could gin up any argument you want, and it could theoretically be classified as trafficking because it's so nebulous of a concept.
Yeah. Someone in the chat, and we're going to take some calls in a second, says, ask why the temple architecture on the islands. Do you have any thoughts of that? I think there was like...
I don't know. I don't have a perfect answer. I think, again, Epstein was into kind of weird art, which I don't think is a crime. Like, lots of people over the ages have been into weird art. It's not my preference necessarily.
Sure.
But I think, and that so-called temple, I think had been investigated, and like they didn't find anything that was incriminating to do.
And when they say it was like
a weird novelty that he had,
did they? So did they say it was
piano in there because he did play the piano? He was like a child, almost like not quite a prodigy,
but he was a good piano player,
but like a very advanced piano player. So I think he had a piano in there, and he'd go and play the piano.
Was there any confirmation that it was all wired up with video, like the island, like they said it was?
No, I mean that's another myth. Like it's never been confirmed that was all wired up. People just want to believe that. No, not that I know of.
Yeah. But there's no FBI reports or anything of this
showing that there was sort of hidden cameras everywhere on the island sort of estate. No, not that I know of.
I guess there's such a huge element of distrust in this entire thing as well, where you're like again, it's the
right. So let's
the
just
beginning,
blindly trust like a bunch of internet charlatans who claim that they're Epstein researchers but do no legitimate research. Yeah, let's trust them instead. So because we feel distrustful toward other entities, let's have blind, credulous trust in others who might be even less trustworthy.
Yeah, but it's like
that's a great idea.
But I'm saying the fact that like the FBI, there's nothing from the FBI that shows that the thing was wired up with cameras. He goes, oh, that's a confirmation that of course there were cameras. Surely the FBI wouldn't tell us.
A bunch of the claims about cameras, being installed in various places to like potentially capture illicit sexual activity stems from that Maria Farmer lunatic.
Yeah.
I think Virginia Roberts Giuffre might have made claims along those lines, but I know for sure that a lot of it stems from Maria Farmer, who I'm sorry, you wouldn't. She should be she belongs in a padded room.
Yeah.
Like she's that level. She's not just like somebody I think is like maybe a little bit unreliable or has some problems. Like no, she's like legitimately nuts.
Yeah.
So you have like genuine psychos who have been involved in like fomenting so many of the core claims around this stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, man, it's been fun though. All right, let's take some calls here. First up, we got Drew. Phone lines are open, 1-888-949-2969. We got Drew. Drew, what's up, man?
What's up, Danny? What's up,
Michael.
Neckbeard guy. Michael.
We have the same
All right,
beard.
So we have an insult right off the
Alright.
bat. Do we have to listen to this guy?
No, we don't.
Yeah, you don't.
All right, later, Drew.
All right, see ya.
That was Drew, everybody. All right, yeah. People don't have decorum, I guess you would say. For guests, I guess they think that they're gonna do some jokes. All right. Oh, I muted him. Sorry, my bad. Did I mute you or did you mute yourself? I don't know. Not important.
Sorry, I muted myself for a second to choose some nicotine gum.
Oh, no problem. Okay. Phone lines are open.
I have thick skin. I don't care if people insult me, but like, really? I mean, you're going to start off. Like, what? I'm now supposed to like really patiently listen to you.
Also,
like,
we kind of look the same.
Yeah, exactly. I shouldn't even have a neck. Oh, maybe I do. My beard grows fast.
Yeah. But also, a neck beard means you don't have this beard.
No, I thought it was that you just let the whiskers grow on your neck and don't like shape it.
Oh, I thought it was like specifically just the neck portion. All right. Well,
I know. Like, recently, I did have it shaped, but I guess it grew in.
Yeah. Then I have a neck beard as well. You insulted two of us, Drew. Don't appreciate it. All right. This next caller, this is 100% going to be about Israel.
Okay. I'm shocked.
Yeah. I mean, hey, figure it's going to get to that at some point. Jared.
Hey, Danny, how you doing?
What's up,
for taking
man?
my call.
How you doing?
So I wanted to talk about Jean-Luc Brunel. So Jean-Luc Brunel founded the MC2 modeling agency with the help of a $1 million fund from Jeffrey Epstein. He was arrested for alleged involvement with underage sex with young ladies. His model agency was known for its exploits of young girls. In 2020, he attempted to travel to Dakar, Senegal, and at the time he was under investigation on suspicion of rape, sexual assault of minors, sexual harassment, and human trafficking of underage girls for sexual exploitation. Prosecutors also said that Brunel was arrested as part of an investigation into events of a sexual nature thought to have been committed by Jeffrey Epstein and other accomplices. So, with that said, there's a direct link between Jeffrey Epstein funding a modeling agency and whose head was involved in rape, sex trafficking involving underage girls. So is this something you're aware of, sir, with your deep research that you've been doing?
I'm aware of it. You know, I'll admit I don't speak French, so I haven't studied the Jean-Luc Brunel case as in-depth as I have others, but I'm aware of it in broad strokes. And I know that Virginia Roberts Giuffre traveled to France at one point and then took credit for Jean-Luc Brunel having been prosecuted, you know, after all this like Me Too hysteria broke out.
No, this wasn't Virginia, and don't try and drag her name into it.
No, I'm not dragging into it. She went to France and she took credit for having stimulated this prosecution of Jean-Luc Brunel. It's not me dragging her into anything.
I have another question.
And so therefore, given that she was a chronic fabricator, I have to assume that she tainted that investigation most likely, just like she tainted everything else she was ever involved in.
What was the favorite gift that you had received during your bar mitzvah?
Do you get that a lot, that people think you're Jewish? What's that?
People assume I'm Jewish. I wish I was Jewish. I wish I was able to have a bar mitzvah. If they seem like fun.
So
I did attend a bunch.
You're not Jewish. You're just a pedophile.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'm glad
you get that like
I'm glad I
all...
was dumb enough to at least tentatively answer your idiotic question, only for you to then bring up the Jewish stuff and then call me a pedophile. So yeah, another fruitful and constructive exchange with the guy on the internet.
I mean, I feel like that must be a lot of your comment section on.
Yeah, I mean, people assume I'm Jewish. I don't happen to be.
People must
wish I was, because my IQ would be a little bit higher.
The funny thing is, people must be very disappointed to find out that you're not Jewish, because I'm Jewish. But people must be, and I have this sketch where I made with the guy who points out how many Jews there are and things, and then people are like, they do the research and they go, oh man, this guy's Jewish, and they're pretty pumped about finding that out. Like it's a real feather in their cap.
My last name is, if like you know anything about the etymology of surnames, it's pretty clearly Irish.
Yeah.
But there is Tracy. There is a surname Tracy without an E.
Okay.
That is fairly common among American Jews.
Okay.
Maybe Canadian Jews too. So people maybe kind of.
I've never known a Jew with.
And then people just assume when they see me or hear me or speak to me that I must be Jewish.
Yeah.
I have, I guess, classically American Jewish mannerisms. I did grow up in northern New Jersey, which is like
there's a lot of
it's like a third Irish, a third Italian, maybe a quarter Jewish, then the rest others or something. So I was kind of like in the cultural milieu of lots of Jews and maybe absorb certain things. The one time I ever did go to Israel, it was shortly after October.
Oh, well, I've heard enough now.
Yeah. No, but people would be like Israeli people would be coming up to me and congratulating me for making Aliyah.
Right.
Because they assumed I was Jewish and I, had come.
You're just like, I'm just a white dude with a beard from New York.
I wish. I mean, can I become like an honorary Jew? Is there a certificate I can get?
I'm sure we can make that happen. What do you? So I mean, again, so I guess like all the stuff with Epstein, where you go like, because they point to he was friends with Ehud Barak or Ehud Omer, or both of them maybe. Is that just like he was friends with lots of powerful people? That's not
Ehud Barak primarily.
And wasn't he trying to get into Russia as well? Wasn't he trying to make inroads with Putin?
There was this guy, he was like a mover, a consummate sort of mover and shaker, essentially a networker. He was like pathologically networking all the time, right? And trying to ingratiate himself to any place he could, and he was often successful. That's sort of like why it's an amazing story, and people are understandably intrigued by it. Like, no, I've never tried to chastise anyone for being fascinated in the story.
There's also the element where did all the money come from? Like all the Wall Street guys are like, we had no idea how he made this money. Like,
I mean, no, there's always been some indication of where the money came from. I mean, it's always been a little bit enigmatic, but it's never been a total mystery. I think some people just like want there to be a mystery, so they don't even bother to look into it.
Yeah.
Because like they would rather be sort of titillated, by the supposed mystery around his wealth. And there are some maybe slightly less clear aspects of how he garnered his wealth, but we know a fair amount. I mean, we know about his relationship with Wexner, with Leon Black, other billionaires. Ghislaine Maxwell, in this proffer interview that she did this summer with the Deputy Attorney General, went into even greater detail about how he, is basically a money manager for Elizabeth Johnson, who was the heiress to Johnson & Johnson fortune, and others. And he also had his own business investments and enterprises. Like he helped. He was an investor in a sporting goods and apparel sporting goods venture. I'm forgetting the name now with an R. So I mean, what I would love to know more, I would love to have every penny that he ever accumulated to be forensically audited. That's what I would love. But we don't have that. It doesn't mean we don't have any information at all about how he acquired his wealth. I mean, like when he got arrested in 2019, he had to report his assets, right?
Yeah.
So we know what his at least reported net worth was. Is it possible that he stashed money offshore or something like a lot of rich people? Sure.
Probably. But I mean, he was living in what, a $70 million house or something?
Something like that. What Maxwell says is he got that house in New York City as like in lieu of payment from Wexner, who he was doing work for, right? So it was like and Wexner had moved to Ohio, so like they had like an arrangement where he got the house, right?
What kind of work are you doing where you getting a $70 million house?
Well, yeah, he apparently did quite a bit. Like he restructured, Maxwell says, Wexner's entire businesses. Like Wexner had a very complicated, vast sort of business
empire
portfolio. He ran his ran Wexner's like a whole financial operation essentially. He oversaw his like property developments in Ohio. He had a country club that Wexner owned that he did the finances for. He restructured his business what would be the term for it? I don't know. Business holdings.
Yeah.
He was just very, very much. You got to remember, Wexner was one of the wealthiest people in the United States, so he had this huge, complicated sort of apparatus, business apparatus he was running, and like he hired Epstein to be his like money guy, and that's why he gave him power of attorney. He like, crafted like the trust funds for Wexner's children, and did all kinds of stuff. So so in lieu of like whatever he would have gotten paid per year, which is I think it was. According to Alan Dershowitz, it was basically 1% of Wexner's income.
That's really not that crazy, actually. Like,
right, and if we're talking about a multi-billionaire, that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
and so let's say the guy was worth I think $9 billion, And so, do the math.
Yeah,
and so
$90
part of
million
it
a year.
was part of the compensation was in the form of the house that Wexner was leaving anyway.
Yeah.
It's
and I believe his neighbor was Howard Lutnick, I read.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, interesting. All right, let's take another call, hopefully less adversarial.
I don't mind adversarial, just don't be a total moron.
Yeah, well, I can't promise that. It's not called high value mail. Hello. Who are we speaking with?
Hello?
You're on
my
low
name's
value mail. Carter, what's up, man? You're on with Michael. Go ahead.
I'm not sure what is the topic today.
Are you serious?
I hope that's a troll.
Yeah,
I hope that's a
It's
deliberate.
about media, right?
It's about what?
We're talking about media, right?
Media?
Media.
What are you talking about?
Did you just tune in?
Did you just tune in like 2
I
seconds
did
ago?
tune in.
Why would you
About
call if
5
you have no
minutes ago.
Why would you call?
If I'm being honest, because I've been looking for shows to call into. I love debating, and I just have an itch to debate today.
We're not talking about media. Okay. Carter, the show's every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to the channel. Call in next week. Watch it from the beginning because we have not.
A troll. I mean,
we have not discussed the media. Go ahead, Carter.
The thumbnail says you don't hate the media enough.
Well, I was referencing. We were talking about like the whole whatchamacallit, the woman who got killed in the Ukrainian woman who got killed in Charlotte.
Okay.
Yeah. But that was at the. You missed the window to call in about that. Now we have Michael Tracey. I honestly feel like, have you ever seen that Mr. Show sketch with the pre-taped call-in show?
I have not.
Oh my God. It is one of the greatest sketch comedy of all time, but it's a guy who does a pre-taped call-in show. So then people are watching the show, but they're calling in about the wrong topic. Because basically he's like, all right, so next week call in about animal welfare. And they're like, I'm calling in about my grandmother. He's like, no, that was last week because it's pre-taped. Anyways.
I mean, if that was deliberate trolling, I would applaud it on some level. But if that guy really was so just...
he just was looking for...
up and not even know what the topic is.
He's looking for call-in shows, and he came in real late. And he had no idea what we were talking about. I mean, there is like a YouTube algorithm, so he might have just been scrolling through YouTube, and it just was like, here's a show that's live right now. All right, let's go to Quebec, my least favorite province. Actually, not my least favorite province. I like Quebec. Just don't like the people. All right, and we're going to wrap this up very shortly. Thank you again for coming on, Michael.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, this is very cool. It's like a...
Quebecois callers.
Quebecois, and they don't know how to unmute themselves. These goddamn frogs. I had to deal with them all my life living in Canada. All right. Let's try somebody else. And this is exactly what always happens is I ask someone else to unmute themselves, and then they both unmute themselves at the same time. And it's pure chaos. But it is what it is. What kind of stuff you got coming up while we're waiting for someone to unmute themselves? Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. They unmuted themselves. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, this is me, Dan. Am I live?
Yes, this is you, Dan, and you are live.
Hey, right on. Thank you so much.
You're on with Michael Tracey.
And yeah, right on. Hello, Michael Tracey. This is the first that I've really heard from you, and I'm kind of eager to really dive into your work. So thank you very much. I'm one of Danny's viewers, not as adversarial. I'm sorry about the other guys that were on. But I am definitely more in the conspiratorial zone of following Epstein. My question is I don't want to be too pushy or anything or bring up other people that are reporting it, but I was curious about people that have been on the show before with Danny, like someone like Nick Bryant.
I was actually it's funny you say that because I actually was meaning to ask you what are your thoughts on Nick Bryant?
Nick Bryant is one of the few people who I would actually outright call a journalistic fraud.
Really?
A lot of criticisms of others.
Wow.
Like Whitney Webb, I have huge criticisms of atrocious methodology.
Whitney Webb was my next.
I'll get to her next, but Nick Bryant actually is a fraud. I happened to see him at the Epstein press conference, and
But didn't he release Epstein's black book in the Vanity Fair
he did.
article?
He got you know how he got that. Bradley Edwards, who was running this press conference, was an FBI informant, a confidential FBI informant. You know, people are always worried about the deep state, right? Well, then you should be worried about this guy. He's an admitted FBI informant, and he participated in a sting operation against Epstein's former houseman, who was like the maintenance guy essentially at Epstein's Palm Beach house, because Edwards wanted to get this so-called Little Black Book, again a fake term that was essentially invented, like it was never called the Little Black Book, but the people who compiled it. But Bradley Edwards, colluded with the FBI in a sting operation to get that guy arrested, so they could get his the copy of the so-called Little Black Book that he pilfered. And then Edwards secretly colluded with the FBI and Southern District of New York later on to get Epstein re-prosecuted federally in 2019. But beyond that, yeah. So Nick Bryant did publish via Gawker in January 2015, excerpts essentially from that Little Black Book. So that is true, but that's not even why I'm calling him a fraud. He's a fraud because I had kind of only been dimly aware of him for a while, but people were telling me, "Oh, you got to listen to this guy."
The Franklin scandal's really good. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
The so-called pedophile scandal that he covered in Nebraska.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's a fraud. Nick Bryant is a pure
what?
Fraud. Yep.
My world is shattered.
Sorry to break it to you. So I listened to a couple of his podcast appearances, right? Because he's been on the hot commodity on the podcast circuit this summer, in the summer of Epstein. And so I listened to him on Breaking Points, right? So I figure if I'm going to listen to this guy ever, I'll listen to him on Breaking Points, because I'm a semi-regular guest on Breaking Points. I know they have at least some journalistic standards, rather than some of these dopey comedian podcasts where they'll just say anything. And
guilty.
Yeah. And so I for example, I hear Bryant cite what he says as a study by the Department of Health and Human Services that found, according to Bryant, that up to 325,000 women and children are sexually trafficked in the United States every year. So he's trying to give us that info to stir us to action to combat trafficking or something. So I said, okay, where's that study? I'd love to see it. I do some searching around. Turns out the study doesn't exist. And he was just basically cribbing like an activist organization, false summary of a study that never purported to find anything like that in 2001. So he's using already a 25-year-old almost study. And so I sent him an email saying, hey, for polite, can you please, I heard you mention this study or cite this study on Breaking Points today. Could you please send me a link or give me a citation? And he says to me, I'm sure you could find that information the next time you log on to the NAMBLA website. So he's calling me a pedophile for asking him.
Who doesn't call you a pedophile? It's crazy.
Nick Bryant does, and lots of people on the internet do. And he says what a great friend he was to Virginia Roberts Giuffre. He's we must believe. He claims he's a journalist of some kind, right? But he says that what our role is as journalists is to simply believe victims when they claim that they were victimized. Do no verification of anything, do no journalistic inquiry, just believe, because that's what he, and he has this fake NGO that he set up called Epstein Justice, which who knows what the hell it does. He solicits donations for it when he goes on these podcasts. I would love to audit the finances of that thing. He makes up claim after claim after claim. I actually, once he called me the pedophile, essentially, I said, okay, now that's it. We're at war. And so I forensically sort of listened to it. Yet another podcast he did that had millions of views. It was insane, with Chris Hedges.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to be this big Epstein expert, right? That's so identity. He did the Black Book, right? He's the Epstein Justice founder. So people go to him if they want somebody who has some kind of supposed expertise or expert knowledge on Epstein. And every other sentence that came out of his mouth was just contained some factual falsehood. He didn't know, for example, and this is a minor one, he didn't know, except for example, that he claimed Ghislaine Maxwell sued Virginia Roberts Giuffre for defamation rather than the other way, because he wanted to cast Virginia in the most positive possible light. He didn't know that it was Bradley Edwards on behalf of, and David Boies, I think maybe, but I know Bradley Edwards on behalf of Virginia Roberts Giuffre who sued Maxwell. He said that he said that when the supposed victims got money from the settlement program, the Epstein Victims Compensation Program, which was drawn from Epstein's estate after he died, that it was all part of the cover-up, according to Nick Bryant, because anybody who received the settlement was required to sign an NDA, which would bar them from naming any other perpetrators, Bryant said. It's just totally false, totally made up. This guy has no journalistic standards whatsoever. There was no barrier at all to to recipients of settlement money from naming other perpetrators if they so chose, including filing lawsuits against other perpetrators if they had something to identify, which apparently almost none did. The only thing that it precluded them from doing was filing additional litigation against the Epstein estate or entities that were deemed sufficiently connected to the Epstein estate. But like Virginia Roberts Giuffre got obviously a huge settlement from that ridiculous settlement program, tax-free, by the way, tax-free settlements.
Why is it tax-free? Powerball's not tax-free.
There was a quirk in the IRS code that they used that they inserted into the sort of administrative protocol for these funds. So that Epstein estate fund was tax-free, all payments. JP Morgan settlement, which is hundreds of millions of dollars, tax-free, and same with Deutsche Bank. So when these women were paraded around at this press conference and they're like multi-millionaires, I don't know, maybe somebody should have told the viewers that they had gotten all this tax-free money. Why do they not have to pay? Why do they not have to pay taxes on their lavish income, but everybody else does?
Yeah. I mean, the Powerball you have to pay taxes on.
Yeah. And they basically did win the lottery.
Yeah.
So Nick Bryant, so he made up like a central claim about that the structure of that settlement program. He claimed that when Epstein was incarcerated and from 2008 to 2009, he would continue to molest underage girls. Nick Bryant said zero evidence for that ever. Like not even Bradley Edwards ever claimed that. I mean, it's just false. I mean, so and I can give you a million other examples. The guy just has no scruples at all. He's like a scammer. So if you had him on the show
twice,
you shouldn't have. Okay, well, I guarantee you. I mean, I hadn't. No offense, I hadn't even heard of your show until I got invited.
Hey, don't worry.
I guarantee you, if I went back and listened to his appearances, I would find a million. Just not even like that I disagree or the subjective like difference of opinion or something, right?
Yeah.
That he would just have spewed factual falsehood after factual falsehood because he's a fraud.
So the Franklin scandal is fake?
Criticisms I've done a whole series this summer of people I have like huge, serious, almost like very strident criticisms of who have like made their like reputations around their supposed expertise on Epstein. So this woman Tara Palmieri, who's more in the mainstream type person. Whitney Webb, who I think the guy also wanted to ask about, Daryl Cooper, another charlatan, Nick Bryant, and the latest was who's the latest? Who am I missing? Maybe I'm missing. So I don't know. I'm blanking on. Julie K. Brown, more of a mainstream person.
Okay.
Who wrote the Miami Herald series in 2018 that kind of harnessed Me Too and like got everybody all exercised about Epstein and then catalyzed the re-prosecution of him by federal prosecutors. But despite my huge criticisms of all those people, and they're really dire criticisms, the only one that I feel rises to the level of actually me being calling a fraud is Nick Bryant.
Wow.
Yep.
Spilling the tea. This is like a drama.
I told him directly.
It's a drama podcast now.
I've told him no drama. I told him I'm not gossiping behind his back. I've told him directly.
No, I know. I guess.
And then he's like, he claimed like he finally replied because I sent an email to Chris Hedges, who had him on this podcast where it's just like a tsunami of falsehoods that were coming out of this guy's mouth. And, they tried to ignore it for a while. Then finally, like Nick Bryant apparently was told by Chris Hedges or someone that he should respond to me. And then he like does this whole like incoherent babbling blog post where he's like making fun of my name. Just like, he's like a child. It's insane. This guy could have gotten any influence at all. It's just like such a huge indictment of the modern media ecosystem. So I haven't read his entire book on that supposed Nebraska scandal. I did read a chapter that he claimed he contributed to some psychology book that dealt with the Franklin scandal or whatever. And it's just like gobbledygook. It's insane.
Yeah.
So yeah,
he's a fraud. All right. Well then, good to know.
Whitney Webb is just a charlatan, and she won't engage with any criticism, and she uses emotional blackmail tactics to not account for any criticism that's made of her. Like she evokes her personal life and how you're basically adding stress to her personal life because she has a baby or something, and she talk about drama.
Yeah.
it's all about like that's her go-to tactic. Like just
I had
like,
her ex-husband on the show. He was a interesting guy.
yeah, I heard from that guy, and I said, look, I don't want to hear any gossip about the personal life. I'm not interested. But if you have anything that's like substantive that you would like me to know about,
Yeah.
sure, pass it along. But I haven't heard back from him.
All right, caller. Anything else there?
Okay, yeah, right on. I'm happy to just listen. I guess I've got like 3 last questions. I'll just throw them
3.
all out,
Just
and
make
then,
it 1.
I'll let you
Okay,
go.
yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
3
Okay,
questions.
yeah, right on. Well, I guess I'm just curious. Maybe you were just getting into it with but opinions about Whitney Webb. I just grabbed her book. Do I toss that out? And then the claims about like Marina Farmer, Virginia Giuffre. I apologize for my ignorance about being a little bit behind on them, like making stuff up. Totally believable to me based off of like what I've listened to with them, like in interviews and stuff. But just maybe like 1 or 2 things about them making up, and then curious about your work, Michael Tracey, like where I can keep up with you or follow you and kind of get your summary and overview about the whole story here.
Yeah, great. I mean, you're actually a very pleasant caller. So thank you. In terms of me,
thanks, guys.
I'm
Fucking
asking
assholes.
questions.
Yeah, great.
Right
No,
on.
it's
Thank
great.
you.
It's great. Yeah, I'll answer the third one first. That's the easiest. You go to mtracey.net, mtracey.net, and you can see like my whole. I mean, I've done like a big Epstein basically series since July, on many different aspects of it. I just had a piece that came out today. It was actually late, September 8th. Because I was at this Epstein press conference, right, and I interviewed a bunch of the so-called survivors, many of whom were just fake. They claim they're adult grooming victims, right? And they allow themselves to be conflated with child sex victims, which is like so manipulative.
I know.
And
That, honestly, that like I haven't really thought about it too much, but about the fact where you're like, you just like they were probably like a bunch of them were just like escorts and they were adults because like you saw this during the Me Too stuff where you're like, this is not. It's not what this is. Like, I'm not saying people didn't get like sexually assaulted, but then like all like it's maybe because I'm in comedy and like all these people came out of the woodworks and you're like that that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's
and it does a disservice to the people.
Don't even fault them, like because like again, look, these opportunities open.
Yes, I agree.
They can get like a second career.
Are you sure you're not Jewish?
I wish. So yeah, go to mtracey.net. And then it's mtracey on X. I have a YouTube channel as well. I don't put as much effort into that, but I do post some stuff there.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
Cool.
And I contribute to other publications too. So I have at least some journalistic credentials potentially, So
Yeah.
Okay. So on and then I'll answer them in reverse. So a couple of things that Virginia Roberts Giuffre and Maria Farmer made up, right? Okay. So I don't know if you heard the whole show, but Virginia Roberts Giuffre, Maria Farmer was interviewed by Whitney Webb in 2020 over the phone, and Maria and Whitney Webb eventually posted it on some website that she was a contributor to, and I have a piece about this from a few weeks ago. And because what had been going on is like Whitney Webb was going around and just like basically parroting the claims of this Maria Farmer woman because she's like. Whitney Webb is like being touted as this big Epstein expert or chronicler or researcher or whatever on all these dopey podcasts she goes on where like everybody just like sits in awe of her supposed vast wealth of knowledge, right? Because that's what Whitney Webb does. She's just like a motor mouth. Like she'll just like spuriously dot connect a million apparent facts, some of whom are just made up, but some of whom like might be like kind of factual, but then she'll like draw all these like salacious inferences and it's like it's classic, just kind of almost like I know schizophrenic is an overused term. I'm not saying she's literally schizophrenic, but it's like almost like similar sort of reasoning, It's
the Charlie Day meme.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And so like in that interview with maybe I'm answering both questions actually because it involves Whitney Webb, funnily enough. Maria Farmer says that to Whitney Webb that she was held captive at this Ohio estate of Leslie Wexner, which she did go to. She was offered an opportunity because she had worked. She was an employee of Epstein when she was around 25, right? So she would like basically sat at the front door of Epstein's house in New York and like check people in or whatever, because he wanted like an attractive young woman to be sitting there and just be there, and she
around.
And but she was an artist, right? So like Wexner apparently wanted like an in-house artist or something.
Sure.
And she claims that when she was there, she was held captive by Wexner, by the Jewish mafia, by sharpshooters, and by Doberman retrievers. And yet she says while she was being held captive, allegedly, she also had her younger brother come and visit her on this compound, right? So that doesn't make any sense. She claimed that she had this divine revelation about how Epstein and Maxwell were pedophiles because she consensually joined them in bed, she says, one night when she was literally 26 years old. She says that Epstein and Maxwell and maybe Bill Clinton and Donald Trump gave her cancer. So who knows how? She says she got multiple cancers because of this. She claims
Seems believable.
She claims that Trump. She was on CNN recently, trotting out the claim that Trump basically endangered her or made her feel victimized because there was one time where she was in Epstein's office, right, and she was in running shorts, and she was sitting there, and Trump came in, and Trump looked at her, and then she was victimized by Trump. She claims that she called up the FBI and reported a vast pedophile conspiracy in Ohio. And seriously, go look at I have the transcript of her call with Whitney Webb. It's just a carnival of hallucinations. She said what she tried to report was that there was this big pedophile conspiracy in Ohio, and it involved Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, somehow, and it involved Leslie Wexner and the Jewish mafia. And she said the FBI agent was asked her, who knows if she even called the FBI? It's unclear. I mean, that's how crazy this woman is. She might believe that she did, but
sure,
who knows? She says that the FBI agent asked her, "What do you mean, Jewish mafia? What's going on?" And she says, "What do you mean? What do I mean?" And that was supposed to activate the FBI to launch a giant criminal investigation or something. It's just crazy stuff. So, and then hilariously enough, here's the kicker, right? She had this. She supposedly had this huge admiration for Whitney Webb. She's praising her on this phone call or whatever. But then 2 years later, so by 2022, Maria Farmer comes out and starts accusing Whitney Webb of being complicit in a murder.
Really?
She says Whitney Webb is complicit in causing this chef in Kalamazoo, Michigan, getting murdered because he happened to die, right, in his 60s or something. And Maria Farmer started blaming Whitney Webb for causing him to be murdered because she gave him, Maria Farmer had given Whitney Webb information on this chef who supposedly had insight onto Epstein or something, and Whitney Webb I guess published it or put out the information in public, and then she was accused of being complicit in murder. So, but hilariously enough, and this gets to how atrocious Whitney Webb's methodology is. If you go crack open that book, which I guess you purchased or have now. So this book was published. So Maria Farmer accused Whitney Webb.
This is the One Nation Under Blackmail.
One Nation Under Blackmail, Volume 1 and 2. Wow. Maria Farmer started accusing Whitney Webb of being complicit in this murder, I believe, in May of 2022. The book was published in October of 2022, right? And Whitney Webb has no compunction about citing Maria Farmer as a credible source in this book. She cites the interview that she did with Maria Farmer as though it's just obviously
the woman that accused you of murder. You're she's
exactly. So
basically she's reliable every other time.
Yeah, and so I
a good point.
To read. I read more than that book than I wanted to. I admit I couldn't slog through the whole 1,100 pages because I think it is the worst organized and edited book I've ever attempted to read. Literally, it's horrible. You would think a book about sexual blackmail cabals and intelligence agency intrigue and stuff would be interesting to read. It couldn't be more. It's the most tedious book I've ever tried to read. It's just a bunch of so-called research that she just dumped, and she had helpers help her dump into this book so she could claim that, oh, I wrote a book. It means I'm so credible and authoritative, right? Please go read my book. That's what she always says. You have to read my book. It's all in there. Well, okay. So after so many people on the internet, because I knew of Whitney Webb for a long time, I've maybe seen stuff that she did here and there, but I never did a deep dive, right? But after this whole Epstein sort of furor, a million commenters every day were saying, "Why you're such a coward? Do you want to engage with Whitney Webb? Engage with Whitney Webb." Okay, so I said, fine, I'll engage with Whitney Webb. But you know what? They didn't really want engagement. They wanted just mindless puffery of her. That's what she's treated to when she goes on these podcasts. She refuses to engage with criticism or debate. She refuses to debate me. She refused to debate Glenn Greenwald, essentially. She claims she might do it a month or something, but I doubt it. She's just so very busy. She can't make the time for 6 weeks to potentially debate Greenwald, which I doubt she'll do, but who knows? And so I listened to a podcast. So I read much of the book and then listened to like the first podcast that came up first with Brianna Joy Gray. There's one point where she's saying, hey, everybody, what you got to remember around this time, it's not clear what time frame she's referring to. She's just all over the place. Jeffrey Epstein was an FBI informant. No credible evidence ever that Jeffrey Epstein was an FBI informant. And she says, oh, yeah. And Brianna Joy Gray was at Whitney Webb. Like, how do we know that? And everybody just assumes that she's like this authoritative person, right? So she says, oh, yeah, it's in my book. I know this. I have the source in my book for sure. I think it was some victim court filing or something. She had no idea what she was even citing. And yeah, so sure enough, I looked through the book. There's no citation of this. It doesn't appear in the book. She doesn't even know what's in her own book.
She knows how to sell books, though.
Yeah, sure. There are a lot of very gullible people on the internet. That's for sure. And then she made up a whole false story, right? Because like she'll do is like she'll list off like 3 consecutive sequential supposed facts, not all of which are actually facts, and then invite people to draw the most obvious nefarious inference, right? So she cooked up this whole story about how Epstein's houseman, the guy who Bradley Edwards entrapped in a sting operation and got him locked him up in prison so he could get the stupid little so-called little black book. She claimed that that person, his name was Alfredo Rodriguez, died in prison, and she says this was the same year that Donald Trump launched his first presidential campaign, with the idea being, and then they had like 10 minutes of discussion about this with Brianna Joy Gray. The idea being that we're supposed to infer that Trump had this guy killed because, murdered in prison because Trump's name is circled in the so-called little black book, and that was Alfredo Rodriguez, right? Who was trying to sell the book for $50,000 to Bradley Edwards because the guy was destitute and he was desperate. And he was circling, I think, pretty much anybody who he knew to have some connection to Epstein and was also like famous, right? So Alfredo Rodriguez had taken phone calls at Epstein's house in Palm Beach, and Trump would sometimes call. So he would jot down messages from Trump. So he knew that Trump and Epstein had some relationship, and Trump was this famous celebrity. He was the guy from The Apprentice, right? But Whitney Webb basically concocts this whole like storyline where we're supposed to believe essentially that Trump and Epstein like conspired with one another to have this guy murdered in prison to insulate Trump from child sex trafficking charges.
So that he could run for president.
Yeah, so he could run for president. It's just like made up. The guy didn't even die in prison.
Oh, he didn't even die in prison?
No, she just made it up. So
is he still alive?
Makes stuff up. I have a Substack article. Whitney Webb makes stuff up because she made that up. And then so I basically when I finally looked into her, I sent her a whole bunch of questions, and to give her credit, unlike Daryl Cooper, Martyr Maid or whatever, who's even just a big crybaby and like a drama queen. At least she did actually answer, at least initially, my first set of questions, or attempted to anyway. But I asked her a series of questions, right? And she tried to claim to me, so she like half answered a bunch of them. Like she didn't correct the thing about the FBI informant on Brianna Joy Gray's show. She didn't correct the false claim about the Alfredo Rodriguez thing. So if you go and watch like those videos that she's on with Brianna, have like hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube, and it's just like if you watch it, you're just being totally misled.
Yeah.
But then she tried to claim that she partially agreed with me, right? I guess she was trying to butter me up or something because I pretty much had the goods on her. And she said she claimed to me that I tend to somewhat agree with you that the sex trafficking aspect of all this could be exaggerated to sort of obscure what the real issue is, which is the financial scandal. I'm like, wait a second, Whitney. I have quotes from you where you say publicly, as like a fact claim, that the United States is governed by effectively sexual blackmail that was orchestrated by Epstein at the direction of Israel. Like,
it's the name of the
book. There's a pedo rape ring. You say that a pedo child, rape ring is, first of all, proven to exist and also dictates the governance of the United States. So you're telling me you agree that's been overemphasized? If that was actually remotely true, I'd be the first one rushing to cover it. It just happens to be like fictitious. So she can't like keep her argument straight. Who knows what her argument even is? She can't even really summarize what her book is. Like the one funny thing is like so many people were telling me I had to read this book, right? I'm convinced that like 99% of them never read it because they could never actually summarize what its argument was. They could never distill like what its core evidence or like
everyone's a pedophile.
No, you know,
I haven't read it.
They couldn't summarize what it was. They just knew like the book existed and supposedly this like tome of like massive insight, and it's just atrocious. So I think that she's a charlatan. I think that she's been a huge factor in like misleading people and getting people hysterical about the pedo ring stuff and the black, you know, and she like her methodology is so fallacious. And she only goes like, I will debate, or you know, maybe to my disadvantage, I will debate anybody. Anybody wants to debate me, I'll do it. I'll do this. I've been on Twitter Spaces for like hours. Anybody can make any criticism of me that I want. I even debate, like semi-debated Glenn Greenwald, who I'm otherwise, you know, friends with and co-host, guest host the show and stuff. And he agrees with me some, you know, partially on Epstein, but he has like certain maybe differences. So we had like a pretty, you know, a very vigorous debate on that. For an hour, I've debated on breaking points. I'll go anywhere. But Whitney Webb won't engage. So what does that tell you? And neither will Darryl Cooper. You know, just like runs and hides like a little baby. Julie K. Brown wouldn't answer my questions. She's a more mainstream person. Same with Tara Palmieri, who actually literally ended a live stream that she agreed to come on with me prematurely because I asked her even the most mild, she's kind of journalistically skeptical question. And you know, I saw Tara at this press conference, and she was like all in my face with her phone, right? Oh, why are you aggressively questioning the victims? Like she was like trying to tattletale on me. I mean, these people are a joke.
Yeah,
I mean, it's worse than I ever could have imagined. So that's why
there is some element where that's what butters their bread, you know. Like, oh, there's some almost like they have to willfully not ask certain questions because then they're like, that's
no. I mean,
that's kind of where they make their money.
I've gotten a lot of hate and criticism, which is I'm good with criticism, even very vituperative criticism, right? I'm not crazy.
Never heard that word before.
I'm not vituperative.
No.
Oh, you know, it's just very like, you know, acidically negative.
Oh, okay.
Insulting essentially.
Okay.
You know, I'm not thrilled about being called a pedophile 24/7.
Nah, it's not great.
Or you know, have people like, you know, demanding the FBI come and like seize my hard drive, which if they did, they wouldn't find that very much as interesting. I promise you. A lot of like government documents and stuff, and like screenshots of like Ukraine war, you know, footage or whatever.
Sure.
But at the same time, you know, I have, you know, the Substack has been doing very well recently because there's at least a minority of people who appreciate like a rational sort of inquest.
Yeah,
into this
I mean,
stuff.
you're the only person who's really pushing back on this stuff. There's a whole ecosystem of everybody basically saying the same shit,
right?
Which is almost the mainstream at this point, like borderline. That is the conspiracy became the mainstream essentially. So, like I said, you are the conspiracy theorist, really. Like you are the opposing force, like opposing minority force almost. All right, caller, I gotta let you go, man. Thanks for calling in. All right, we're gonna take one more.
Did I answer your questions?
I think I hung up on him, but I think you got it. Yeah, you got it. Okay, one more. You good for one more call?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. We got Frank out in Long Island.
Frankie.
Frank
here. So let me talk to you about the
where we at? Nassau or Suffolk? What's up?
Oh, Nassau.
Right. Word.
So, what do you call it? They say Epstein was good with money, and then they say Epstein was terrible with money. And, you know, my timeline with Epstein goes like this. He is good with hiding people's money and being like, you know, quasi-illegal with all these like funds. And then he gets hooked up with Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell has a connection with Mossad. Ghislaine Maxwell then starts, him and her are both creeps. So they said, hey, let's use our creepiness to honeypot all these individuals and then kind of like leak it to Mossad. Now, what happened is that they weren't seen as the enemy until, I guess, right after he got the sweetheart deal where he was able to go to jail only a couple of days a week or stay in jail, but like also go out, kind of like use it as an apartment. And then after that, I guess like he threatened somebody and then boom, they got rid of him. You know, they finally tried him. They put him in jail. They killed him in jail, which, by the way, happens a whole lot. So what am I off base on with that? You know, I mean, what am I Am I on base? Am I off base? And also, I kind of disagree with you on Whitney Webb because you know, I think she's pretty good, but you know, whatever. Just answer that first, and then I guess we could have just a small back and forth with Whitney Webb.
Okay. You know, I'm not surprised that you're a fan of Whitney Webb because you were off base on virtually everything you just said there. So I'll go through some of it. You said that Ghislaine Maxwell was connected to Mossad, right? There's zero evidence that Ghislaine Maxwell was connected to
Her
Mossad.
father was, though, right?
Her father, she had a father, right, who did traffic arms essentially to Israel in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, and was definitely a benefactor of the state of Israel. And yes, when he died in 1991, he was buried in the Mount of Olives in next East Jerusalem in like an honorary burial, which is where people who were considered like friends of the Israeli state or benefactors of the Israeli state were buried, like Sheldon Adelson, the big Republican donor, who's like hardcore pro-Israel. When he died in Malibu, California, they flew his body to the Mount of Olives and buried him there. So yes, he was, but you know, in terms of Ghislaine Maxwell being an agent of Mossad, there's just zero evidence. People just sort of dot connect to the father, and therefore infer that means that Ghislaine Maxwell must have been a Mossad operative. That just doesn't follow.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there aren't a lot of stories of someone who's like, my dad was in the CIA, therefore I'm in the CIA.
Right.
Right. Like you wouldn't, someone said like, oh, my dad was in the CIA, so you must be in the CIA. They go, no, my dad was in the CIA.
And like Ghislaine Maxwell kind of had was
So
known
this was
to be
like a
her father's
Manson thing?
favorite.
Was it like a Manson family? Was it like a Manson family thing where like, you know, she is coming from this rich family or this whatever Mossad family, whatever you want to call it, and she's just like kind of like a rich, you know, whatever, and she hooks up with Epstein because he's also kind of creepy. Is that it? Is that like what you're thinking?
I doubt she would have hooked up with him initially if she found him creepy. I think she found him attractive and she was sort of into him, and they had like a hookup. And then they developed.
I mean, what I'm saying is that they're both like freaks, and like that's why like they could be
How
both
is Ghislaine
freaks.
Maxwell
That's what.
Like sexual deviance, you're kind of saying?
Like based on what?
Yeah,
like, what
I mean, like
that Ghislaine Maxwell did that was like sexually freakish.
Well, I mean, she got like women to come into Epstein's life and kind of forced them into giving them massages, and then he was kind of passing them around with all these rich people.
That's the folklore around her, yeah. But you know, in terms of her own private, like you said that she met Epstein, like she got involved with Epstein because they were both freaks, right? But like so at the point, so she met Epstein in the early '90s, right? Or shortly after she met Donald Trump, believe it or not. So, what are you saying gave rise to them meeting that stemmed from her being sexually freakish? Because none of the allegations about supposed trafficking are from the early '90s. That came much later, and they're very dubious as well. But the allegations don't even start to be made. The allegations weren't even made about that time period having anything to do with her trafficking anyone. So, what was she doing that was sexually freakish in like 1991?
No, I'm just saying. I'm just trying to figure it all out. That's why I kind of laid it out.
I mean,
for
this
you.
question has been asked in the chat many times, but then so why is she in jail?
Yeah, I mean,
I'll tell you.
I mean, if she wasn't trafficking everybody. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll answer. I can answer. Well, I mean, the literal reason why she's in jail is because she was convicted in her 2021 trial of a bunch of charges that Maureen Comey and her fellow prosecutors concocted to basically use her as a scapegoat, I would argue, in lieu of being able to prosecute Epstein, who at that point was dead, but they needed a scalp, right? Someone had to pay for Epstein's perceived crimes, and Epstein was dead. So Maxwell was next in line. And like the literal charges on which she was convicted was for participating in a sex trafficking conspiracy. And according to the government and according to all the alleged victims who testified against her at the trial, and there were 4 of them, out of what we're told is over 1,000 victims, right? But the government can only manage to find 4 to testify against Maxwell. And each one of them has problems, huge problems, like discrediting problems. But even the allegation was merely that this alleged sex trafficking conspiracy that she was convicted for, and she was convicted, consisted of a grand total of 2 people, herself and Epstein. So that's what she's in prison for. Now,
2 people that they know about.
What's that?
two people that they know about. And also, here's another thing too: is that why are they going out and getting like the Giuffre girl and all these other people to give Epstein massages when they could just like get a bunch of escorts? I don't understand. That's
they were escorts.
That I don't understand.
I mean, some of them functionally were escorts. Like Epstein had this involvement with these like modeling agencies, essentially, right? Somebody like that idiot before.
No, I'm talking about real escorts, not like girls who thought they were models, and then you bring them in and you have a bottle of lotion and you say, "All right, lube me up and give me a happy ending." I'm talking about like real professional, skin salesman type saleswoman or whatever you want to call it. Like, people that like are actual prostitutes. They could have just went to like Amsterdam and like picked up like a half a dozen of them, or they could have went to Thailand or anything like this, but they chose to find these girls and kind of manipulate them and bring them in. And
well, you can't base any of your knowledge or your assumptions about this story on Virginia Roberts Giuffre, because she's a chronic fabricator. Like I don't think there's anybody who's ever walked the earth who has spawned more chronic fabrications that have generated mass hysteria than Virginia Roberts Giuffre. So you can't take anything she claimed at face value. So if that's what you're doing, if that's what you're predicating any reviews of the story on, I have to just tell you, you need to reconsider. You have to rethink. So yeah, there is a story told about her having met Virginia, about Ghislaine Maxwell supposedly having recruited her when she worked at Mar-a-Lago or something. And not even clear the timeline on that. She initially tried to claim she was 15, and then it got revised up by her lawyers. Eventually, like the earliest that she could have possibly really encountered Epstein would have been 17. Not saying I condone that per se, but like, it's
so
just,
why did they both go to jail?
But Virginia Roberts Giuffre at that point was already like a proud, I'm sorry to say, prostitute. Like she claims that she had already been sex trafficked or been embroiled in two sex trafficking operations before she ever claimed that she met Maxwell and Epstein.
Really?
What was going on with this woman? So
what is Epstein? What was Epstein in jail for, and why did he get killed in jail?
I will say.
And what is Ghislaine Maxwell in jail for? Nothing.
Frank. He just said, yeah. Conspiracy.
The sex trafficking conspiracy that the government and the alleged victims all claim consisted of two people, herself and Jeffrey Epstein.
And those other people that just came out recently on Capitol Hill.
Right. Many of whom were fake victims. I interviewed a bunch of them. Go to my Substack if you'd like. Many of whom were adults in their 20s who are now like willingly having themselves conflated with child sex trafficking victims, because that like garners sympathy for them and like accolades, and like then they can have how do all of these people have podcasts? Like all of these supposed survivors have not all of them, but a bunch of them actually do have podcasts. They're a bunch of them had gotten like book deals and stuff. They're multi-millionaires with their tax-free settlement money. I mean, these people are like they're like they're entrepreneurs.
I see your point.
Yeah.
I see your point and everything, but the thing is that I mean, it seems to me that the only thing that they could get Ghislaine and Epstein on was the trafficking. So that's what they kind of leaned on. And like you were saying, is
yeah. What else?
Yeah, but why did they grab him? Why did they grab him instead of just leaving him alone, or just kind of like I don't understand. Like who did he?
I did want to say that it is true that Epstein did have like a pathological obsession with getting massaged constantly. Again, definitely a weird guy. You could even say creepy guy for sure. And so, yeah, like he was always like wanting a constant sort of influx of, younger women, some of whom he clearly in a period in the early 2000s was not checking if they were above the age of consent in Florida, which is 18, one of the highest in the world. And girls like Virginia Roberts Giuffre was, she could have been prosecuted for sex trafficking if prosecutors actually wanted to pursue that. Of course they wouldn't. One of the witnesses, or one of the alleged victims that testified at Maxwell's trial, was this woman Carolyn Adriano. And the claim was, and we never quite know what the timeline here, the claim was that she was 14 when she first encountered Epstein and Maxwell, right? Or really encountered Epstein, not Maxwell. And she was theoretically there to convict Maxwell on sex trafficking charges, right? But Carolyn Adriano said that she was trafficked. If she was trafficked by anyone to Jeffrey Epstein, you know who she was trafficked by? That's right, Virginia Roberts Giuffre. And Virginia Roberts Giuffre, she said, would tell her to lie about her age. So tell her to tell Epstein she was 18. And then Virginia Roberts Giuffre got cash for her referrals of girls who were in her age group, so just younger, just around the same age. And the government, she's supposed to be this marquee accuser, right? She's the American hero according to Bradley Edwards, or she's like this truth-telling martyr. She's like the new Joan of Arc. The government never called her as a witness in the Maxwell trial. Supposedly she had all the smoking gun evidence. You know why they didn't call her? Because she would have destroyed the government's case, because that's how wildly lacking in credibility she was. Because she had so many chronic fabrications that she would have ensured that Ms. Maxwell actually got acquitted. And the government really wanted to convict Maxwell at that point because they needed a proxy for Epstein to punish. So that's why she wasn't called to testify. Do you find that curious that the supposedly witness number one was not called to testify against Maxwell at the trial if she had all the damning info? Oh, and she was herself accused of being a sex trafficker by these other girls.
That's a good point.
And so again, if any assumption or just conception that you have about this case is predicated solely on her, you got to revise, because it would be as though, I don't know, if you use Bernard Madoff to think about what's a good business. I'm trying to think of a parallel. It's she is, I think, going to go down as one of the most just shockingly effective, I think in some sense malevolent fabricators of all time. And look at what she's done. She's caused
she created a whole cottage industry.
Yeah, exactly.
I got
and then
it.
she would also try to manipulate other female girls or females to try to corroborate her story. So she actually manipulated another woman essentially to perjure herself, Sarah Ransom, also a nutcase who claimed that she had sex tapes on Trump, Clinton, Prince Andrew, Richard Branson, and then admitted she made it up. But she got Sarah Ransom essentially to file an affidavit in Virginia's ongoing lawsuit with Maxwell, or maybe it was with Dershowitz rather. And Sarah Ransom felt like she had an obligation to help Virginia, right? And she just ended up perjuring herself by making up fake stuff. And she the damage that this person did, it's just extraordinary.
Yeah, there is so much stuff in this whole thing. We go, a couple photos, 30 seconds of video would just kind of there's probably a couple photos or 30 seconds of video that would be completely damning for all of this, and we never get any of it.
And it's been going on, depending on where you mark at the beginning of it, it's going on since 2009 pretty much, and then a huge amount of attention since 2018.
Some texts.
So, journalists, lawyers, there's been an avalanche of litigation that's been very intense for years and years and years. There's been a feeding frenzy, journalistically, politically, Netflix, HBO, name your million podcasts. So where's the smoking gun? Is there any smoking gun evidence of anything ever? Does that not tell anybody anything? At what point does the absence of evidence indicate to you that there might be a problem here in terms of what your premise is for what happened?
I mean, it's the absence of evidence that keeps us all going.
Why did they burn him? Why did they burn him? Why did they burn Epstein? I don't. He went. The first time they caught him as a pedo in Florida, but they gave him a sweetheart deal. The only people that they give sweetheart deals are people who work for the.
Well, Michael said earlier, I don't know if you missed that part, but we went over that. It wasn't a sweetheart deal.
Sort of a
misnomer,
a cliche that got invented by journalists years after the fact. Epstein certainly didn't consider it a sweetheart deal. Neither did his lawyers. His lawyers vigorously fought the government to try to get Alex Acosta to stop interceding federally into the Palm Beach investigation, because Epstein really didn't want to be forced to have to plead guilty to a state level charge in Florida that required him to register for life as a sex offender. You know what a hassle that is? But his high powered defense attorneys failed, and Epstein was outraged. So it wasn't a sweetheart deal for him. Really? You think having to register for life as a sex offender, where every move you make, and he had a bunch of properties in a bunch of different states, right? And each state has a different regulations around the sex offender registry.
Hardly convenient.
Yes, you have to figure out, do I have to report this movement in New Mexico, and then, or this in Florida, or this in New York, or this in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and he also had a property in Paris, so he has to report his international travel. Sweetheart deal. And he did have to serve a term in jail. Yeah, he applied for work release after a few months. So he enters jail in June of 2008. In October of 2008, he applies for and is granted work release. The Palm Beach Sheriff's Office says he's granted work release according to the same criteria that any other inmate would have gotten it. And he's wealthy, so he has a lawyer who's able to set up this office for him to go do his seeming day job. And he's able to leave during the day for the purposes of quote unquote work. Now, was it a little bit phony? Sure, but he did so. But it was work release, and then he had to go back at night to sleep in jail. So I don't know. I mean, and then he had to pay a lot of money through civil damages pursuant to a provision of the non-prosecution agreement to individuals that the government had designated as victims, but never even proved were victims. So this whole sweetheart deal claim, I think, is just something people say without even really looking into it. And in terms of why was he federally re-prosecuted? Yeah, I'll tell you. Because Bradley Edwards, so it was Me Too, right? So there was a whole Me Too sensation. We have to do a reckoning on all these harms that women have been made to suffer from. There was this Bradley Edwards colluded with Julia K. Brown to do this Miami Herald series that supposedly blew the lid off the Epstein story and how allegedly corrupt that quote unquote sweetheart deal was. And there's renewed prosecutorial action in the Southern District of New York, partially due to Bradley Edwards colluding with them secretly behind Epstein's back, who he had a relationship with, and then partially due to the public sort of a clamor from this Miami Herald series, and then and so that's why he's re-prosecuted. Then he's indicted and arrested in July of 2019. He's in the federal jail facility in Manhattan, ends up dead. Now, this might surprise you, right? Here's the one dimension of this whole story where I have some epistemic humility. I think it's plausible that he actually didn't kill himself. I don't know. I can't say for sure. I don't know. I'm just saying that there's a bunch of evidence. There's room for doubt, right? Because if you listen to Epstein's brother, Mark, who's done a bunch of interviews lately, seems like a pretty sensible guy. He's very measured. He's not trying to make any sensational or conspiratorial claims. He's just relaying what happened because he was Epstein's next of kin when he died, because Epstein had no spouse or had no children of his own, right? So but he did have a brother. And so the brother had to run the administrative tasks essentially after Epstein died, running the autopsy and so forth. And so they hired their own pathologist to accompany the New York City pathologist, and they made some findings about the severity of the wounds, which didn't seem consistent with suicide. They kind of tampered with almost the crime scene at that point, or the death scene, before it could be investigated. So Epstein's body was taken to the infirmary. Investigators couldn't come in necessarily and evaluate the actual scene of his death in the cell. You do have the stuff with the cameras not being operational. There was one camera that was operational, but it doesn't have a direct view of his cell. And Epstein, earlier on in the summer of 2019, he did have a cellmate, right? And who did the Bureau of Prisons decide to put in a cell with Epstein? This rabidly violent, corrupt former cop named Nick Tartaglione, who was in locked up for I think 4 murders, and then it comes out that Epstein, there was reports made that he attempted suicide for the first time in July of 2019, but Epstein, is reported to have denied that he attempted suicide. He said he was attacked. So
really, I didn't know that.
And by the cellmate, because think about it, if you're perceived by guys in prison
to be a snitch,
to be the most notorious pedophile in American history, if a guy is your cellmate and doesn't kill you, that guy will get his ass kicked.
Right.
So Epstein was at mortal risk just by being in prison and given what he was thought to have done, right, or perceived to have done.
Well, and also that guy that was with him were known to choke people. That's what his modus operandi was to choke people or break people's necks or something like that.
So I don't think it's necessarily, it doesn't have to be like Mossad did, or it doesn't have to be some grand conspiracy that gave rise to Epstein potentially dying by homicide, if that is what happened.
The cover-up of it, obviously.
It could have been just the nature of this supposedly notorious pedophile being in jail. Of course, everybody around him is going to try to want to kill him. And the guards are probably going to not look the other way, right?
Yeah.
So that seems plausible to me. I don't know for sure. I'm just saying that's one area where I think there's reasonable doubt.
Okay, Frank, last thing. Go ahead.
All right. So last thing about Whitney Webb. Do you think that she's just she kind of data dumps, and the reason why she data dumps is because she just doesn't want the hassle of people kind of calling her out on all of her information? I mean, do you think she's just kind of like just being like just ultra? She kind of reminds me of the Corbett report. I don't know if you or Danny ever heard of the Corbett report.
I know. Yeah, he's been on the show. James Corbett's been on the show.
Yeah. So he's very data oriented. You know, like he did a whole big thing on 9/11. He did a whole big thing on, a whole bunch of things, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and so on. Like pretty much every single conspiracy in the last decade. But the thing is, he's super data oriented, and he just kind of data dumps and data dumps and data dumps. And do you think that like maybe like that's the issue with Whitney? Well, I mean, that's the problem that you have with her. She just like, she grabs the information and then sets it, and then she tries to like create this giant mound of information because she just doesn't want to be challenged.
I know what you mean. I have multiple problems with her. Some of the data that she quote dumps is actually fake data, if you want to put it that way. Like I described earlier, like she made up this claim where the Epstein's former house manager supposedly died in prison, and she states it as fact on Brianna Joy Gray's show, and then she tries to use that to weave a web, to use a pun, that somehow implicates Trump in the murdering this guy in prison because Trump wanted to run for president and not be dogged by this Epstein house manager who might try to implicate Trump in child sex trafficking. It was just made up. So you can't trust this person's research methodology even to recite facts that are correct. And then she kind of like she wouldn't even like account for her falsehoods, really. Like if I ever made like a genuine mistake, right, a factual mistake, which happens in journalism, right, not perfect, I would correct it. Like I that's happened before. So, but she just like, she always has an excuse, like, oh, I have a baby, or, I have mommy brain or something. It's like always like some weak excuse. A woman I was talking to actually used that term. I had never heard it. But like, she's so, she's just so, she can't handle it. She's just, it's always like trying to like rope you into her like personal drama as if I give a shit, but her methodology I would describe as, you say data dumps. I say she throws spaghetti at a wall, right? Oh, look at all these like, you can draw these like really, elaborate, tenuous connections between things, and it's just like slimy spaghetti sliding down the wall, and it's supposed to add up to some whole, but she doesn't like really spell out what whole it adds up to so much. And it's a common tactic among people within, like, say, the conspiracism realm. And look, I'm not saying that there's no conspiracies that have ever existed. I'm just saying if conspiracism is like your epistemology, meaning like that's the prism through which you fundamentally absorb and synthesize information, it's going to lead to this like scatterbrain sort of way outlook that Whitney Webb personifies. And so it shouldn't be surprising that she's unwilling to debate, unwilling to engage with criticism. I love when people engage with me with rational criticism. I'm not perfect. Everybody can have. I want to be constructively criticized. I invite it. So what does it tell you that she just refuses to do it? It shouldn't tell you anything good about what she's all about.
Well, I mean, the only thing that I'm criticized about her is that she's just too wrapped up in the cryptocurrency. But other than that, I mean, I don't even know
what her deal is on that. So I mean, I'll take your word for it. I've heard a little bit about it. I just don't know what her involvement is.
I mean, the reason why she's into cryptocurrency so much is because she's number one, she's out of the country. And two, she's out of the country because she's afraid that like the United States is going to fall to a dictatorship, which we almost did in Biden. But, and that's
Oh, give me a break.
But I mean, we were almost there. I mean,
At what point did Joe Biden nearly seize dictatorial power and abolish the constitutional order of the United States? Like, what? Give me like a rough date when that supposedly happened.
Well, I mean, it wasn't Biden. He was the corpse that was being propped up by the globalists. I mean, under his reign,
that'd be nothing.
No, I mean everything that he did.
Under Biden, like when did Biden nearly seize dictatorial power? I know a lot of people think that about Trump because like of January 6th or something, which I never bought into either. But like, how is that possibly true of Biden? And really, Whitney Webb had to flee the country because like there was going to be a Biden dictatorship. I don't know why she's out of the. I mean, it's.
She was there. I remember when I interviewed her.
She has like extra credibility because like she's in such danger because of all her explosive bombshell information. It's like so destabilized into like powerful people that they would swarm, like the CIA would abduct her or something if she wasn't wherever she is.
Well, this was like because when I talked to her ex-husband, which must have been like 3 years ago now, I think they were like before COVID. They were somewhere in South America or Central America, but I don't know why.
South America. I don't really care that much about her personal life. I do find it odd that she and her boosters, I guess, use the fact that she's somewhere in maybe I think it's Ecuador or something like that. I'm not even sure.
Yeah,
to like somehow endow her with this like almost martyrdom complex where like she's sacrificing for the sake of all this incredible information that she's pumping out, and she's under threat by the U.S. government who knows what powerful interests. That's why she has to live abroad. I mean, I just don't buy it. I don't know what her personal situation is. I don't want to get involved in that at all. But like I find it weird that like that sort of would be used to give her this sheen of, you know, courage or something, as though like it's just too dangerous for her to be in the U.S. That's why she has to be there, and like everybo's supposed to be really impressed.
I'll just say this, and I'll get off the line. But yeah, I think she's just being overly cautious by moving out of the States and kind of worshiping the whole cryptocurrency, like it's going to be the savior to save her and the whole rest of the world from, you know, the Federal Reserve and all these other places. But anyway, thanks for taking my call.
All right, thanks, Frank. All right, that's the show. Thank you again, Michael Tracey.
Yeah, no problem.
Ended on a bang. So people can find you mtracy.net for your Substack.
Yep.
Twitter.
Tracy with an E.
Yeah, Tracy with an E. YouTube.
Tracy on X. Tracy on YouTube. Tracy everywhere.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Tracy forever.
Tracy forever. Thank you very much. That was.
Is this going to be posted somewhere, or is it?
I'll post the. It just lives on YouTube. Like the stream just becomes a YouTube link, and then it'll go on Spotify and everywhere that people listen to podcasts. And I'll link you in when I post that again. Michael Tracey, everybody, thank you all for joining the show. Catch me on a new episode of The Bathhouse tomorrow night, 9 p.m. from the Stand Comedy Club Green Room. Have a good night, everybody. Goodbye.
I'm really a poet, you know it, all my shit heroic. Empathic abilities, yeah, my face be also stoic. Bleep, blow up, nigga, that just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can feel this hit if you up or if you hurt. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet in some Birkin. Number Johnny 5, got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I spit phenomenal. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comical. You know I got a ball out, I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. And they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. Now we pulling up fresh on some flight shit. Ha. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. Then they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. Now I'm pulling up fresh on some flight shit. Ha.